The sound of a child's body hitting concrete silenced an entire playground. Tom Harris watched the bully tower over the fallen teenager, fists clenched, ready to strike again. Every parent froze. Every child stared. But Tom, a single father with calloused knuckles and a daughter's hand in his, took one step forward. What happened next would leave 30 witnesses speechless and one bully learning the hardest lesson of his life. Stay with me until the end of this story and comment your city below. I'd love to know how far these words have traveled. Tom Harris had promised his daughter Emma they'd spend the entire Saturday afternoon at Riverside Park. No phone calls from work. No quick errands. No distractions. Just father and daughter time, the kind that had become precious since Sarah's death 3 years ago. The September sun hung warm in the California sky, painting golden streaks across the playground equipment where dozens of children laughed and played. Emma, 7 years old, with her mother's hazel eyes and her father's stubborn chin, had dragged him to every corner of the park already. They'd fed the ducks by the pond, attempted the monkey bars. Twice she made it halfway before dropping into his arms, and now she was determined to master the art of pumping her legs on the swings. "Higher, Daddy!" she called out, her braided hair flying behind her like a banner. "I want to touch the clouds." Tom stood behind her, giving gentle pushes when needed, though she was getting better at maintaining her own momentum. His weathered hands that had once thrown hundreds of punches in amateur boxing rings across the state, now existed solely to catch his daughter if she fell to braid her hair before school, to pack lunches with notes that said things like, "You're braver than you think, kiddo." The park was crowded for a Saturday. Young mothers clustered on benches sharing gossip, while keeping half an eye on toddlers in the sandbox. A group of teenagers had claimed the basketball court, their game punctuated by good-natured trash talk. An elderly couple sat beneath the oak tree sharing sandwiches and watching the world go by with the patience of people who'd seen it all. Tom noticed the boy first couldn't have been more than 15, skinny as a rail, with an oversized Lakers jersey hanging off his narrow shoulders. He was sitting alone on a bench near the water fountain earbuds and sketching something in a notebook. There was something familiar about the kid's hunched posture, the way he made himself small, invisible. Tom recognized it from his own childhood, before boxing had given him confidence, before he'd learned to stand tall. The bully arrived like a storm cloud crossing the sun. Marcus Wheeler, though Tom didn't know his name yet, was 19, maybe 20, with the kind of bulk that came from genetic luck rather than hard work. 6'3", probably 240, wearing a tank top that showed off arms covered in amateur tattoos. He moved through the park like he owned it, his two friends flanking him like hyenas following a lion. Tom's instincts, honed from years in the ring and on the streets of East Los Angeles where he'd grown up, immediately went on alert. He'd seen this type before. The kind who'd peaked in high school, who'd discovered early that size and aggression could get them what they wanted, who'd never learned the difference between being strong and being cruel. Marcus spotted the kid with the notebook. His face split into a predatory grin. "Well, well, well." Marcus's voice carried across the playground, causing several parents to look up. "If it ain't little Tyler Chen, thought I told you this was my park." The boy Tyler looked up and Tom saw the fear flash across his face before he tried to mask it. The kid pulled out his earbuds slowly, his hands trembling slightly. "I'm not bothering anyone, Marcus, just drawing." "Just drawing," Marcus mocked in a high-pitched voice, his friends laughing on cue. "What are you drawing Tyler more of, that anime crap? Or maybe you're writing in your diary about how mean the world is." Tyler started to stand clearly, planning to leave, but Marcus stepped closer, using his body to block the boy's escape route. The notebook fell from Tyler's hands, pages fluttering open to reveal intricate pencil drawings, landscapes, portraits, a detailed sketch of the park's old oak tree. Marcus's boot came down on the notebook, grinding the pages into the dirt. "Oops. Please," Tyler's voice was barely a whisper. "That's 3 months of work." 3 months! Marcus laughed, a harsh sound that made several children stop playing to stare. "You need a new hobby, freak." Tom felt Emma's swing slow down. She was watching too, her innocent eyes taking in a scene no 7-year-old should have to witness. Around the park, he could feel the collective tension. Parents pulling their children closer, teenagers stopping their basketball game, the elderly couple no longer eating their sandwiches. Everyone watching, no one moving. Tom understood why. Marcus was big, aggressive, unpredictable. Getting involved meant risk of injury, risk of escalation, risk of becoming a target yourself. It was easier to look away to tell yourself it wasn't your problem to hope someone else would step in. But Tom had learned long ago that hope without action was just wishful thinking. Tyler tried to reach for his notebook, and that's when Marcus shoved him. Not a gentle push, but a violent thrust that sent the smaller boy stumbling backward. Tyler's feet tangled, and he went down hard, his shoulder hitting the concrete path with a sickening thud. Several people gasped. A mother covered her child's eyes. Marcus stood over Tyler, fists clenched. "You think you can just come to my park whenever you want? You think you belong here with normal people?" Tyler tried to scramble backward, but Marcus followed, raising his fist. "Maybe I need to teach you a lesson about respect. Emma, honey, go stand by Mrs. Patterson for a minute." Tom's voice was calm, steady, but Emma heard something in it that made her immediately obey. Mrs. Patterson, one of the regular park mothers who Tom had chatted with over the months, quickly gathered Emma to her side, though her eyes remained fixed on Tom with a mixture of concern and curiosity. Tom walked toward Marcus with measured steps. Not aggressive, not threatening, just purposeful. His hands hung loose at his sides, his breathing controlled. 25 years of boxing training kicked in automatically. Not the desire to fight, but the discipline to stay calm when violence hung in the air like smoke. "That's enough," Tom said, positioning himself between Marcus and Tyler. Marcus looked at him, confusion flashing across his face before it hardened into amusement. He took in Tom's appearance, 41 years old, 5'10", maybe 175 pounds, wearing dad jeans and a faded Dodgers t-shirt. To Marcus, he probably looked like just another suburban father, soft from office work and weekend barbecues. "This ain't your business, old man," Marcus said, his friends moving to flank Tom. "Walk away while you still can." Tom didn't move. "The kid's had enough. Let him go." "Or what?" Marcus stepped closer, using his height advantage to loom over Tom. You're gonna be a hero in front of all these people." Behind Marcus, Tyler struggled to his feet, holding his shoulder. Tom caught his eye and gave a small nod toward the benches. The kid understood, limping away from the immediate danger zone. "I'm not trying to be anything," Tom said, his voice still eerily calm. "I'm just asking you to walk away. There's no need for this." Marcus's friend on the left, a wiry kid with bleached tips, laughed nervously. "Yo, Marcus, maybe we should bounce. Lot of people watching." "Shut up, Kevin," Marcus snapped, not taking his eyes off Tom. "This fossil thinks he's tough. Look at him trying to act hard. Probably hasn't thrown a punch since high school." Tom said nothing, just maintained eye contact. In the ring, he'd learned that silence could be more unsettling than any threat. Let your opponent fill the void, let them talk themselves into mistakes. Marcus's jaw clenched. "You know what, I was just messing with the kid. But now you've pissed me off." He rolled his shoulders, cracked his knuckles. All the performative gestures of someone who'd watched too many movies who thought intimidation was about showing rather than being. "You've got a choice here," Tom said quietly. "You can leave now and this ends, or you can take a swing at me and things get complicated. But either way, you're done terrorizing children in this park." The crowd had grown. Tom could feel them in his peripheral vision, a ring of spectators maintaining safe distance but unable to look away. Someone was definitely filming with their phone. Several someones, probably. Marcus's face flushed red. "You threatening me?" "You're threatening me." His voice rose to a near shout. "Do you have any idea who I am? What I could do to you?" "I know exactly what you are," Tom replied. "You're a bully, someone who makes himself feel big by making others feel small. I've known a dozen guys just like you." "Yeah, and what happened to them?" Tom allowed himself a small smile. "They learned." Something in Tom's tone and the absolute confidence behind those two words made Marcus hesitate. For just a second, uncertainty flickered in his eyes, but then pride and the pressure of being watched by his friends and all these strangers pushed him forward. "You're about to learn something too old, man," Marcus snarled. "A lesson about minding your own." The punch came exactly as Tom expected, a wide telegraphed haymaker from Marcus's right hand, all power and no technique. Tom saw it coming from a mile away. Time seemed to slow the way it always had in the ring. He could see the twist in Marcus's hips, the drop of his left hand, the way he left his entire left side exposed. Tom didn't block. He didn't dodge. He simply stepped inside the arc of the punch, letting it sail harmlessly past his ear. His left hand came up, automatically checking Marcus's right arm, controlling it. And then, with the precision of someone who'd thrown 10,000 jabs at heavy bags, focus mitts, and sparring partners, Tom's right hand moved. It wasn't a haymaker like Marcus had thrown. It wasn't meant to knock him out cold. It was a short, sharp counterpunch, what boxers call a check hook, that landed clean on Marcus's jaw, right on what Tom's old trainer used to call the button. The impact was perfect. Marcus's nervous system did what nervous systems do when the jaw gets tagged just right. It shut down momentarily to protect the brain. His eyes rolled back, his knees buckled, and 240 pounds of would-be tough guy crumpled to the ground like a marionette with cut strings. The entire park went silent. Even the birds seemed to stop singing. Marcus's friends stood frozen, mouths open, unable to process what they'd just seen. The suburban dad in the Dodgers shirt had just dropped their leader with a single punch, and he'd done it with the casual efficiency of someone performing a task they'd done 1,000 times before. Tom stepped back, his hands returning to his sides. He wasn't even breathing hard. Marcus groaned, his eyes fluttering open. He wasn't seriously hurt. Tom had pulled the punch, used just enough force to shut him down without causing real damage. It was a lesson, not a beating. "Stay down for a minute," Tom said quietly. "Let your head clear." Marcus's friends finally unfroze. Kevin started forward, fists raised, but Tom just looked at him, really looked at him. And Kevin stopped something in Tom's eyes, telling him that would be a very bad idea. "Your friend's okay," Tom said to them. "He's just had his bell rung. Help him up in a minute, get him some water, and then I suggest you all find somewhere else to spend your afternoon." He turned back to Marcus, who was now sitting up, holding his jaw, his eyes wide with shock, and something that might have been fear. "You want to know what happened to those dozen guys I mentioned?" Tom asked, crouching down so they were at eye level. "The ones just like you. Some of them learned to be better. Some of them didn't. The ones who didn't," he shrugged, "they kept running into people like me until the lesson finally stuck. Which kind are you going to be?" Marcus didn't answer, couldn't answer. His whole worldview had just been shattered by a middle-aged dad who looked like he should be coaching Little League, not dropping people with professional-level counterpunches. Tom stood and turned to Tyler, who was standing by the benches, his notebook clutched to his chest, his eyes wide with awe. "You okay, kid?" Tyler nodded quickly. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much." "Don't thank me yet," Tom said, then raised his voice so everyone could hear. "Can someone call the police? This young man was assaulted and he'll need to file a report." Marcus struggled to his feet. Kevin and the other friend supporting him. You can't." "I can, and I will," Tom said firmly. "You assaulted a minor. That's a crime. Maybe spending a night in county will help you reconsider your life choices." "But you hit me." "Self-defense," Tom replied. "You threw the first punch. About 30 people saw it, and I'm betting at least 5 of them have it on video." He gestured to the crowd where, indeed, several phones were still recording. "You really want to press this?" Marcus's face cycled through several emotions: anger, humiliation, fear, and finally defeat. Without another word, he turned and stumbled away at his friends supporting him. They made it about 20 feet before Tom called out, "Marcus?" The bully stopped but didn't turn around. "If I see you in this park again, if I hear you've been bothering Tyler or any other kid, we're going to have another conversation. And next time I won't be as gentle." "Understood." Marcus nodded once, then continued his shambling retreat. The crowd watched them go, then slowly began to disperse, though the excited chatter was just beginning. Tom could hear snippets of conversation. "Did you see that one punch? Who is that guy?" Tyler approached hesitantly. "Mr. I don't know how to thank you. Nobody's ever stood up for me like that before." Tom picked up Tyler's notebook from where it had fallen, brushing off the dirt. Some of the pages were torn boot prints visible on several drawings, but most of it was salvageable. "These are really good," he said, flipping through the sketches. "You've got talent." Tyler's face lit up despite everything that had just happened. "You think so?" "I know so. My wife was an artist. She would have loved these." Tom handed the notebook back. "Don't let people like Marcus make you feel small for being creative. The world needs more art, not more bullies." Was was your wife really an artist? She was. Painted the most beautiful landscapes you've ever seen. She used to say that art was just another way of fighting, fighting against ugliness, fighting for beauty. Tom's voice caught slightly the way it always did when he talked about Sarah. Emma came running over, Mrs. Patterson trailing behind her. She threw her arms around Tom's waist. "Daddy, that was scary." "I know, baby. I'm sorry you had to see that." "But you protected him," Emma said, looking up at her father with those huge hazel eyes. "Just like you protect me." Tom smoothed down her hair. "That's what we do, right? We look out for people who need help." Mrs. Patterson approached cautiously. "Tom, where did you learn to do that?" "Long story." Tom said, not really wanting to get into his boxing history with an audience still lingering. "Well, it was incredible. Stupid maybe, but incredible. That guy could have really hurt you." Tom just smiled. "He could have tried." A siren wailed in the distance, growing closer. Someone had indeed called the police. Tyler looked nervous. "It's okay," Tom assured him. "Just tell them the truth. I'll stay here as a witness, and I'm pretty sure we'll have plenty of others willing to back up your story." Several people in the crowd nodded. A man in a USC sweatshirt called out, "I got the whole thing on video, including him shoving the kid first." As they waited for the police, Emma tugged on Tom's hand. "Daddy, you never told me you could fight like that." Tom knelt down to her level. "That's because fighting isn't something to be proud of, Em. It's just something you sometimes have to know how to do. To protect people." "To protect people," he agreed. "But the real strength isn't in knowing how to throw a punch. It's in knowing when not to throw one. I could have hit that man much harder, but I didn't." "Why not?" "Because the goal wasn't to hurt him. It was to stop him from hurting someone else. There's a big difference." Emma considered this with the seriousness only a 7-year-old could muster. "Mom would have been proud of you." Tom's throat tightened. "You think so?" "I know so. She always said you were her hero. Now I know why." The police car pulled into the parking lot, 2 officers emerging. The next hour was spent giving statements. Tyler explaining the history of harassment from Marcus, multiple witnesses confirming Tom's version of events. The officer taking Tom's statement raised an eyebrow when Tom mentioned his boxing background. "Amateur or professional?" "Amateur. Golden Gloves champion 97 and 98. Light middleweight." The cop whistled low. "That kid's lucky you showed restraint." "There's no luck about it, officer. Control is the first thing you learn in the ring." By the time the police finished, the sun was starting to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. The park had mostly emptied, though Tom noticed a few people still pointing him out to newcomers, the story already growing in the telling. Tyler's mother had arrived, a small woman who looked like she'd aged years in the span of minutes after getting the call. She hugged her son fiercely, then turned to Tom with tears in her eyes. "Tyler told me what you did, how you stood up for him." She grabbed Tom's hands. "He's been dealing with those bullies for months. We've tried everything, talking to Marcus's parents, filing complaints. Nothing worked. But you stopped it." "I just did what anyone should have done, ma'am." "But nobody else did," she pointed out. "Everybody always just watches. You didn't just watch." As Tyler and his mother left, Tyler turned back. "Mr. Harris, could I maybe show you more of my drawings sometime? I mean, if you're going to be at the park." Tom smiled. "We're here every Saturday. Em and I would love to see them." The park was quiet now, just Tom and Emma and the dying light. They walked back to the swings, Emma's small hand in his large one. "Daddy." "Yeah, baby, but I want to learn." "Learn what?" "What you know, how to protect people, how to be strong like you." Tom stopped walking, looking down at his daughter, this little girl who'd already lost so much, who deserved a world where she'd never need to know how to fight. "Strength isn't about fighting, Em." "I know," she said with a wisdom beyond her years. "It's about standing up when everyone else sits down. It's about being scared but doing the right thing anyway. That's what you did today." "When did you get so smart?" "Mom told me," Emma said simply, "before she went to heaven. She said you were the strongest man she knew, but not because you could fight, because you knew how to love, how to protect, how to stand up for what's right, even when it's hard. Tom's eyes burned with unshed tears. 3 years and Sarah was still teaching him through their daughter. "If you really want to learn, I'll teach you," he said finally. "Not how to fight, but how to be strong, how to protect yourself and others, how to know the difference between being powerful and being right." Emma nodded solemnly. "Can we start tomorrow?" "We can start right now," Tom said, sitting down on a bench and pulling her onto his lap. "First lesson, true strength comes from here." He tapped her chest over her heart. "Not from here." He held up his fist. "What I did today, dropping that bully, that was just technique. But standing up in the first place, putting myself between him and Tyler when I could have just walked away. That took something else." "What did it take?" "Love," Tom said simply. "Love for my fellow human beings. Love for what's right. And knowing that if I didn't act, I'd have to look you in the eye and explain why I let someone hurt another person when I could have stopped it." They sat there as darkness fell, father and daughter talking about strength and courage and the responsibility that comes with power. Around them, the park settled into evening quiet, but Tom knew that by tomorrow the story would have spread. The single dad who'd stood up to a bully, the boxer who'd protected a kid he didn't even know. He thought about Marcus, wondered if the lesson would stick. Some people needed to be knocked down before they could learn to stand properly. Others never learned at all. But Tyler would remember this day, would remember that someone had stood up for him, that bullies could be stopped, that there were still people in the world willing to risk themselves for strangers. "Daddy," Emma said sleepily, her head resting against his chest. "Yeah, Em. I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you too, baby, for what I didn't do anything. You let me go. When I asked you to stand with Mrs. Patterson, you didn't argue, didn't cry. You trusted me. That took courage, too." Emma was quiet for a moment, then, "I knew you'd be okay." "How did you know that?" "Because you're my dad, and dads protect people. That's what you do." Tom held his daughter close, feeling the weight of her trust, the responsibility of being her hero. He thought about Sarah, how she would have handled today. She probably would have found a way to diffuse the situation without violence, would have used words like weapons, kindness, like armor. But she wasn't here, and Tom had done what he knew how to do. "We should go home," he said finally. "It's getting late." As they walked to the car, Emma chattering about what she wanted for dinner, Tom noticed someone sitting on the hood of his car. For a moment his body tensed, ready for round two. But as they got closer, he saw it was an older man, maybe 60, wearing a faded Marine's cap. "You Tom Harris?" the man asked. "Depends on who's asking." The man smiled, sliding off the hood. "Frank Morrison. I was here earlier, saw what you did." He extended his hand, and Tom saw the telltale signs, scarred knuckles, a nose that had been broken more than once, cauliflower ear. Another fighter. Tom shook his hand, feeling the strength still there despite the years. "You box, sis?" "Used to. Semper Fi boxing team back in the day. Lost more than I won, but I learned." Frank looked at Emma, tipped his cap. "Your dad's a good man, young lady." "I know," Emma said proudly. Frank turned back to Tom. "Been watching that Wheeler kid for weeks, throwing his weight around. Always thought someone should do something, but you know how it is easier to mind your own business." "Sometimes," Tom agreed. "What you did today, it mattered. Not just to that Tyler kid, but to everyone who saw it. You reminded us that standing up is still possible even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. I just did what felt right." "That's exactly my point." Frank pulled out a business card. "I run a youth center downtown. Boxing program, after-school tutoring, safe place for kids to go. Could use someone like you if you ever have time. Teaching kids not just how to throw punches, but when not to. What real strength looks like." Tom took the card, studying it. "Morrison Youth Center. I've heard of this place. You do good work." "We try, but we need more men like you men who understand that fighting and violence aren't the same thing. Men who can teach boys how to be men without being bullies." "I'll think about it." Frank nodded, started to walk away, then turned back. "That counterhook was beautiful, by the way. Timed it perfectly. You saw that Son, I may be old, but I know good technique when I see it. That wasn't some lucky punch from a weekend warrior. That was skill discipline and, more importantly, restraint. You could have destroyed that kid. That wasn't the point. Exactly. Frank smiled. That's exactly why we need you. As Frank walked away, Emma tugged on Tom's hand. Are you going to help at his place? Maybe. Would you be okay with that? It would mean less time for our Saturday park visits. Emma thought about it seriously. If it means teaching other kids to be strong like you, to stand up for people like Tyler, then yes, Mom would want you to. Tom buckled Emma into her booster seat, his mind already racing with possibilities. Maybe this was how he honored Sarah's memory. Not just by protecting Emma, but by teaching other children the difference between strength and cruelty, between power and responsibility. As he drove home, Emma chattering about her day, despite the dramatic interruption, Tom thought about the ripple effects of single moments. One decision to stand up had led to this, a child learning about courage, a bully facing consequences, a community remembering that someone has to be first to act. His phone buzzed at a red light, a text from an unknown number. He opened it to find a simple message. This is Tyler. Got your number from the police report. Thank you again. You changed everything today. Tom smiled, typing back quickly. You're welcome. Bring your sketchbook next Saturday. My daughter wants to see your drawings. Really? Really? And Tyler? You stood up too just by being there, by not letting them drive you away. That took courage. There was a long pause then. Nobody ever told me that before. Someone should have. The light turned green. Tom put his phone down and drove his daughter home, the weight of the day settling on his shoulders like an old familiar jacket. He'd fought for money once, for trophies and glory and the roar of the crowd. Today, he'd fought for something better, for a scared kid's right to exist in peace, for his daughter's belief in good people, for a community's reminder that bullies only win when good people do nothing. Daddy, Emma's voice drifted from the back seat. Yeah, baby, can we get ice cream on the way home? Tom laughed, the tension finally breaking. After all that you're thinking about ice cream? Heroes deserve ice cream, she said matter-of-factly. And you're my hero, so you deserve ice cream. What about you? What do you deserve? I deserve ice cream because I have a hero for a daddy. Tom couldn't argue with that logic. They stopped at Emma's favorite ice cream shop, the one Sarah used to take her to every Sunday after church. The teenager behind the counter did a double take when he saw Tom. Hey, you're the guy from the video. What video? Tom asked, though he had a sinking feeling he knew exactly what video. The kid pulled out his phone, showed Tom a shaky recording that had already gotten thousands of views. The title read, Dad Destroys Bully with One Punch, Instant Karma. This is everywhere, man. You're like viral. Tom groaned. This was the last thing he wanted internet fame for, knocking someone out, even if it was justified. It's amazing, the kid continued. Everyone's talking about how you stood up for that kid. My mom saw it and said we need more people like you. Just did what anyone would do. No way, man. My dad was there with my little sister. He said everyone was too scared to move, but you just walked right up. That's brave. Emma tugged on Tom's shirt. See, I told you you're a hero. They got their ice cream chocolate for Emma, vanilla for Tom, and sat outside on a bench watching the world go by. People walking dogs, couples holding hands, kids riding bikes. Normal life continuing despite the day's drama. Do you miss Mom? Emma asked suddenly, chocolate already smeared around her mouth. Every day. Do you think she saw what you did today? Tom pulled Emma closer. I like to think she did. She would have been proud. You said that already. Because it's true. Emma licked her ice cream thoughtfully. Mom always said violence was wrong, but she also said sometimes you have to fight for what matters. When did she say that? When she was sick. She said she was fighting as hard as she could, but sometimes even fighters lose. But the important thing was to fight for the right reasons. Tom's ice cream sat forgotten in his hand, melting down his fingers. 3 years later, and Sarah could still reach out and touch his heart through their daughter's memories. She was the strongest person I ever knew, he said quietly. Stronger than you. Much stronger. I know how to fight with my fists. Your mom knew how to fight with her heart, her spirit, her kindness. That's so much harder. They finished their ice cream in comfortable silence, then headed home. The house felt empty the way it always did, too big for just the two of them, too quiet without Sarah's laughter filling the rooms. But Emma ran straight to her room, returning with a framed photo of Sarah. "We should tell her about today," she announced, setting the photo on the kitchen table. It was their ritual, something they'd started after the funeral. Important moments got shared with Sarah's photo, as if she could somehow hear them through the glass. "Hi, Mom." Emma began, her voice taking on the formal tone she used for these conversations. "Daddy was amazing today. He protected a boy from a bully. He stood up when nobody else would. He used his fighting skills for good, just like you always said he would." Tom sat down, looking at Sarah's smiling face. She'd been so beautiful, even at the end, even when the cancer had taken so much from her. But it had never taken her smile, her grace, her belief in him. "I don't know if I did the right thing," he admitted to the photo. "I used violence in front of our daughter. I could have tried harder to resolve it peacefully. You would have found a better way." Emma shook her head. "No, Daddy. You did exactly right. Sometimes bad people only understand strength. That's what Mom said about her cancer. Sometimes you have to fight because being nice isn't enough." "When did you become so wise?" "I've always been wise," Emma said with 7-year-old confidence. "I just got it from Mom." Later, after Emma was in bed, Tom sat in his garage looking at his old boxing equipment. Heavy bag in the corner gathering dust. Speed bag that hadn't been touched in months. Gloves hanging on a hook, the leather cracked with age. He'd packed it all away after Sarah's diagnosis, focusing everything on her care, then on raising Emma alone. But now, thinking about Frank Morrison's youth center, about Tyler's grateful eyes, about the crowd that had needed someone to go first, maybe it was time to unpack more than just equipment. Maybe it was time to unpack the part of himself he'd buried with Sarah, the fighter who knew that strength without purpose was just violence. His phone rang. Unknown number. "Hello, Mr. Harris. This is Marcus Wheeler." Tom tensed. "How did you get this number?" "Phone book. Look, I wanted to apologize." "I'm listening." There was a long pause, then. "My dad was worse than me. Beat my mom, beat me, beat anyone who looked at him wrong. I swore I'd never be like him, but..." Another pause. "When you dropped me today, when I was on the ground looking up at you, I saw my dad. Not in you and me. I saw what I'd become." Tom said nothing, letting the kid work through it. "I'm 19 years old and I'm already a bully terrorizing kids in parks. That's not who I wanted to be." "Then change." "How?" "Start by apologizing to Tyler. Then find someone to talk to, therapist, counselor, someone who can help you deal with whatever's eating you up inside. And stay away from that park until you're sure you can be there without being a threat." "You were a boxer, right?" "That's what the cops said." "I was." Could you teach me not how to hurt people, but what you said today, about strength being about protecting people?" "I want to learn that." Tom was quiet for a long moment. "Call Frank Morrison at the Morrison Youth Center. Tell him I sent you. If you're serious about changing, he'll help you. But Marcus..." "Yeah. If I find out you've hurt another kid, if you're not serious about this, we're going to have a very different conversation." "I understand. And Mr. Harris, thank you for not really hurting me today, for giving me a chance to be better. Everyone deserves that chance. Don't waste yours." After Marcus hung up, Tom sat in the garage for a long time thinking about second chances, about the thin line between who we are and who we could become. He thought about Tyler finding courage in art, about Marcus maybe finding redemption in recognition, about Emma finding strength in love. And he thought about himself, a widowed father who'd forgotten he could be more than just a guardian, that he could be a teacher, a protector, a force for good in a world that often felt too dark. He stood up, walked to the heavy bag and threw a light jab. The chain creaked, dust flying from the impact. Another jab, then a cross. The familiar rhythm coming back, muscle memory taking over. But this time it felt different. Not like training for a fight, but like preparing for something bigger. The garage door opened. Emma stood there in her pajamas, rubbing sleepy eyes. "What are you doing up, baby?" "Heard you hitting the bag. Are you training again?" "Maybe. Would that be okay?" Emma walked over, touched the heavy bag with her small hand. "Only if you teach me too." "You really want to learn I want to be strong like you, but also kind like Mom. Is that possible? Tom lifted her up, holding her close. That's the only way to be truly strong. Em? Strength without kindness is just bullying. Kindness without strength is just wishful thinking. But together they can change the world. We're going to change the world. One park at a time, baby. One park at a time. The next morning came too quickly. Sunday church bells echoing through the neighborhood as Tom stood at the kitchen counter making Emma's favorite pancakes. The batter sizzled on the griddle while his phone buzzed incessantly with messages. The video had gone beyond viral. It was everywhere. Friends he hadn't heard from in years were reaching out. Local news stations wanted interviews, and 3 different boxing gyms had called offering him coaching positions. Emma sat at the table swinging her legs and humming while she drew in a new notebook Tom had bought her that morning. She was sketching something that looked suspiciously like her father standing between 2 figures. Is that yesterday? Tom asked, flipping a pancake. It's you being brave, Emma said without looking up. I want to remember it forever. The doorbell rang before Tom could respond. He wasn't expecting anyone, and after yesterday's events, unexpected visitors made him nervous. Looking through the peephole, he saw a woman in her 50s, professionally dressed, holding what appeared to be a manila folder. Can I help you? Tom asked through the door. Mr. Harris, my name is Dr. Patricia Reeves. I'm the principal at Jefferson Middle School, where Tyler Chen is a student. I was hoping we could talk. Tom opened the door cautiously. Is Tyler okay? He's fine, thanks to you. She smiled warmly. May I come in? This won't take long. Tom glanced back at Emma, who was watching curiously. Sure. Emma, why don't you go wash up for breakfast? Emma reluctantly headed upstairs, though Tom knew she'd probably listen from the landing. Dr. Reeves settled into the living room, her eyes taking in the family photos lingering on one of Sarah. Beautiful family, she said softly. Thank you. You said this is about Tyler. Dr. Reeves opened her folder, revealing what looked like incident reports. Tyler has been bullied for the past 2 years, Mr. Harris. We've documented every incident we knew about involved his parents implemented anti-bullying protocols. Nothing worked. Marcus Wheeler and his crew would just wait until Tyler was off school property. The system failed him. Yes, she admitted without hesitation. It did. We failed him. But what you did yesterday, it didn't just help Tyler. 6 other students have already come forward this morning to report bullying they'd been too scared to mention before. Your action gave them courage. Tom poured coffee for both of them, processing this information. What do you need from me? I'm not here to ask for anything. I'm here to thank you and to tell you something important. She pulled out a photograph from the folder, a young boy, maybe 12, with a black eye and split lip. This was my son David, 23 years ago. He was bullied relentlessly until one day a stranger at a mall intervened. That stranger was a boxer like you. He didn't just stop the immediate threat, he taught David to stand tall to find his worth beyond others' cruelty. What happened to David? He became a pediatric surgeon. He saves children's lives every day. But more importantly, he became someone who stands up for others, who doesn't walk past suffering. She met Tom's eyes. One moment of courage from a stranger changed the trajectory of his entire life. You did that for Tyler yesterday. You did it for all those kids watching. Before Tom could respond, his phone rang. It was Frank Morrison from the youth center. Tom, that Marcus kid called me this morning. Says you sent him. I did. Is that a problem? Problem, no. Surprise. Hell, yes. Kid showed up at 6 a.m. sitting on the steps when I arrived. Been here 3 hours already cleaning the gym, asking when he can start learning the right way, as he put it. Tom was genuinely surprised. He's serious? Seems to be. But I'm calling because Tyler Chen is also here with his mother. Kid wants to learn self-defense and specifically asked if you'd be the one teaching. His mother's offering to pay for private lessons. Tom looked at Dr. Reeves, who was smiling knowingly. Word's gotten out, Mr. Harris. You've become something of a local hero overnight. I'm no hero. Tell that to the 47 emails I received this morning from parents wanting to know if you'll be teaching their kids. Tell that to Tyler, who slept through the night for the first time in months because he finally feels safe. Emma appeared in the doorway, having given up all pretense of not eavesdropping. "Daddy, are you going to teach kids to be strong?" Dr. Reeves stood to leave. "I'll let you discuss this with your daughter, but Mr. Harris—" She handed him a business card. "If you decide to work with Frank Morrison's center, Jefferson Middle School would love to partner. We could bus kids there for after-school programs. Real anti-bullying education taught by someone who understands both sides of strength." After she left, Tom found himself standing in the living room, Emma's hand in his, staring at Sarah's photo on the mantel. The house felt different somehow, like something had shifted in the air possibilities opening where there had only been routine. "Mom would want you to do it," Emma said quietly. "You think so?" "I know so. Remember what she used to say? That we're all given gifts and the only sin is not using them to help others." Tom's phone rang again. This time it was a number he recognized, his old trainer, Mickey Rodriguez, who'd guided him to those Golden Gloves championships. "Tommy boy, I just saw the video. That was beautiful work, kid. Perfect timing, perfect restraint. Mickey, I haven't heard from you in 3 years, 2 months, since Sarah's funeral. I wanted to give you space to grieve to be a father. But Tom, what you did yesterday, that's what the sweet science is really about. Not the belts or the glory, but using what we know to protect those who can't protect themselves. I'm 41, Mick. My fighting days are over. Fighting for sport. Maybe, but fighting for something meaningful. Kid, you're just getting started. Frank Morrison called me. We go way back. He wants to create something special at that center, something more than just teaching kids to throw punches. He wants to teach them to be men, good men. He needs someone like you." Tom sat down heavily, Emma climbing into his lap. "I don't know if I'm ready for that responsibility. You took on that responsibility the moment you stepped between that bully and Tyler. The question isn't whether you're ready, it's whether you're willing to see it through." After Mickey hung up, Tom and Emma ate their now cold pancakes in thoughtful silence. The morning sun streamed through the kitchen windows, highlighting the empty chair where Sarah used to sit, where she'd plan their weekends and dream about Emma's future. "I want to meet Tyler," Emma announced suddenly. "Why?" "Because he's brave too. You said so. And maybe he could teach me to draw while you teach him to be strong." That afternoon they drove to Morrison Youth Center. The building was old but well-maintained, its brick exterior covered in murals of athletes and inspirational quotes. Inside, the sound of gloves hitting heavy bags mixed with laughter and encouragement. Frank Morrison met them at the entrance, his marine cap slightly askew. "Tom, glad you came. And this must be Emma." Emma stood tall, offering her hand like Tom had taught her. "Pleased to meet you, Mr. Morrison." Frank's weathered face broke into a grin. "A proper young lady. Your mom's influence, I'm betting." They walked through the center, Frank explaining the program's boxing training, yes, but also homework help, art classes, conflict resolution workshops. In the main gym, Tom saw Tyler working with a speed bag. His form terrible, but his determination clear. His mother sat on a bench nearby, sketching in a notebook. But what really caught Tom's attention was Marcus Wheeler in the corner, jumping rope with focused intensity, sweat pouring down his face. The young man noticed Tom and stopped, uncertainty crossing his features. Tom walked over Emma, still holding his hand. "Marcus." "Mr. Harris, I didn't expect to see you here." "Frank says you've been here since dawn." Marcus nodded, wiping sweat from his forehead. "I couldn't sleep. Kept thinking about what you said about who I want to be. Figured if I was serious about changing, I should start immediately." Tom studied him for a long moment. The arrogance from yesterday was gone, replaced by something rawer, more vulnerable. Change isn't just about showing up, Marcus. It's about consistency. It's about facing the parts of yourself you don't like and choosing to be better every single day. "I know, I'm learning." Marcus hesitated, then dropped his voice. "I went to Tyler's house this morning, before coming here. Apologized to him and his mom. Offered to replace his notebook, the one I ruined. He said," Marcus's voice caught slightly. "He said he forgave me. Just like that. After everything I did, he forgave me." Emma tugged on Tom's shirt. "Daddy, he's trying to be good now." Tom looked down at his daughter, then back at Marcus. "He says he is. Emma studied Marcus with those penetrating hazel eyes that reminded Tom so much of Sarah. Then she stepped forward, extending her small hand. I'm Emma. If you're trying to be good, I'll be your friend. But if you're mean to anyone again, my daddy will stop you. Marcus stared at the little girl's hand, then slowly, carefully shook it. That's fair, Emma. More than fair. Frank appeared beside them. Tom, I've got 15 kids here today who want to learn from you. Their parents are in the other room hoping to meet the man from the video. What do you say? One trial class, see how it feels. Tom looked around the gym at Tyler, struggling with the speed bag, at Marcus, trying to rebuild himself, at the other kids, watching him with hopeful eyes. He thought about Sarah, about her belief that everyone deserved a chance to be better, to learn, to grow. Okay, he said finally. One class. The next 2 hours changed everything. Tom started with basics, not fighting techniques, but breathing exercises, stance, work, discipline. He talked about respect, about the difference between aggression and assertion, about how true strength meant knowing you could fight but choosing not to unless absolutely necessary. He paired Tyler with Marcus for partner drills, watching carefully as the former bully now patiently helped his former victim learn proper form. He showed Emma basic defensive moves, her small face fierce with concentration. He worked with kids who'd never thrown a punch, and others who'd thrown too many for the wrong reasons. But what really moved him was the parents watching from the viewing area. Mothers with worried eyes slowly relaxing as they saw their children gaining confidence. Fathers nodding approval as Tom emphasized discipline over violence, protection over aggression. During a water break, a boy named Jerome, maybe 13, approached hesitantly. Mr. Harris, my older brother's in a gang. He says fighting is about respect, about making people fear you, but you're saying something different. Tom knelt down to the boy's level. Your brother's confused fear with respect, Jerome. People might obey someone they fear, but they'll follow someone they respect. Fear's temporary. It only lasts as long as the threat. Respect. That's permanent. That's what builds communities, families, futures. But how do I tell him that he won't listen to me? You don't tell him. You show him. You become the example of a different way. Maybe he'll see it, maybe he won't, but you'll know you chose the better path. As the class ended, parents surrounded Tom with questions, gratitude, and requests for more sessions. Frank stood back watching with a satisfied smile. When the crowd finally dispersed, he approached Tom. That was something special, Tom. You didn't just teach them technique, you taught them philosophy. That's what these kids need. It's what Sarah would have done, Tom said quietly. She always said the best way to fight darkness was to teach others to carry light. Smart woman. So, will you come back? Tom looked at Emma, who was showing Tyler her drawings while he showed her his sketches. Two kids from different worlds connected by art and newfound courage. He looked at Marcus helping younger kids put equipment away, trying so hard to be better than he'd been yesterday. He looked at the parents, hopeful that their children could learn strength without becoming bullies, confidence without cruelty. Yeah, Tom said. I'll come back. The drive home was quiet, Emma exhausted from the training dozing in her booster seat. But as Tom pulled into their driveway, she stirred. Daddy, I made 3 new friends today. That's great, baby. Tyler's going to teach me shading techniques. Marcus promised to show me how to jump rope properly. And Jerome wants to learn to draw too. She yawned. Is it okay that Marcus is my friend now, even though he was mean yesterday? Tom carried his sleepy daughter inside, thinking about the question. People aren't just one thing, Em. Marcus was a bully yesterday, but he's trying to be something better today. If we don't give people the chance to change, to grow, then what's the point of any of it? Mom would have given him a chance. Emma murmured, already half asleep. Yes, Tom agreed, tucking her into bed. She would have. Later that evening, after Emma was asleep, Tom sat in his garage-turned gym hands, wrapped, working the heavy bag with renewed purpose. Each punch felt different now, not preparation for competition, but practice for protection. Not about winning, but about being ready to stand when standing was required. His phone buzzed with a text from Tyler. Thank you again for today. For the first time ever, I feel like I can face Monday at school. My mom cried happy tears on the way home. Another from Marcus. I know I have a long way to go to make up for who I was. Thank you for giving me the chance to try. And finally, one from Frank Morrison. Local news wants to do a story on the youth center specifically about your program. They're calling it From Viral Video to Community Hero. Interested. Tom set the phone aside without responding, returning to the bag. The rhythmic impact of glove on leather filled the garage, a meditation in motion. He wasn't interested in being a hero in fame or recognition. But if sharing his story helped one kid stand up to a bully, helped one bully realize they could choose a different path, helped one parent understand that strength and kindness weren't mutually exclusive, then maybe it was worth it. The heavy bag swung back toward him, and he caught it, holding it still. In the sudden silence, he could almost hear Sarah's voice, "You're exactly where you're supposed to be, doing exactly what you're meant to do." A week passed in a blur of activity. Tom's viral video had evolved into something bigger, a movement some were calling it. The hashtag #HatchStrengthWithPurpose was trending, with people sharing their own stories of standing up for others or choosing not to fight when they could have. Monday morning at Jefferson Middle School, Tyler walked through the halls with his head up for the first time in 2 years. Word had spread about what happened at the park, about Tom's intervention, about Marcus's apology. The other bullies who'd made Tyler's life miserable gave him a wide berth, suddenly unsure of their place in the social hierarchy. At lunch, something unprecedented happened. Marcus Wheeler walked into the cafeteria, found Tyler sitting alone as usual, and asked if he could join him. The entire room fell silent, watching as the former bully sat down across from his former victim. "This is weird," Tyler said honestly. "Yeah," Marcus agreed. "But Mr. Harris said the hardest battles are the ones we fight against who we used to be. So here I am fighting, by eating lunch with me, by trying to be better than I was, by making amends, by learning that real strength isn't about power over others." Marcus pulled out a brand new sketchbook still in its wrapper. "I bought this for you, to replace the one I ruined." Tyler took it slowly, running his fingers over the cover. "You didn't have to, Yes, I did. And there's something else." Marcus took a deep breath. "I'm starting an anti-bullying club here at school. Dr. Reeves approved it this morning. I want you to be co-president, if you're willing." The cafeteria erupted in whispers. Tyler stared at Marcus in shock. "You want me to run an anti-bullying club with you, the guy who bullied me, because I know what goes through a bully's head, and you know what it feels like to be targeted. Together, maybe we can actually make a difference. Stop other kids from going through what you went through, what I put you through." Tyler was quiet for a long moment, then extended his hand across the table. "Okay, but we do this right. No fake apologies, no surface changes, real work." Marcus shook his hand firmly. "Real work." Meanwhile, at Morrison Youth Center, Tom was teaching his third class of the week. Word had spread quickly, and now he had 30 students ranging from 8 to 18. Emma was his assistant, demonstrating basic stances with adorable seriousness. "The first rule of strength, Shay," Tom told the assembled kids, "is knowing that you're already strong. Every one of you has survived something. Every one of you has gotten back up after being knocked down, literally or figuratively. That's strength. What we're doing here is just teaching you to recognize it, channel it, and use it wisely." A girl named Maria, 15 and barely 5 feet tall, raised her hand. "But what if you're actually not strong? What if you're just scared all the time?" Tom smiled gently. "Maria, you're here, aren't you? You walked through that door despite being scared. That's not weakness, that's courage. Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's feeling afraid and moving forward anyway." "But you're not afraid of anything," Maria protested. "We saw the video. You just walked right up to that guy." "I was terrified," Tom admitted, and the room went silent. Marcus was bigger than me, younger, had friends with him. A million things could have gone wrong, but I was more afraid of what would happen if I didn't act, more afraid of explaining to my daughter why I let someone hurt an innocent kid, more afraid of living with that cowardice than dying with courage. Marcus, who'd been working with younger kids in the corner, spoke up. "I was scared too. When Mr. Harris stood in front of me, when I realized someone was finally going to stop me, I was relieved, because I was scared of who I was becoming, but I didn't know how to stop myself." The two perspectives, the protector and the former bully, created a powerful teaching moment. Tom seized it. Everyone in this room has the capacity for both to be the bully or the protector to harm or to help. The choice you make in each moment defines who you become. And the beautiful thing, you get to make that choice again every day. Who you were yesterday doesn't have to be who you are today. After class, Frank pulled Tom aside. The news crew is here. I know you're not big on publicity, but Tom, this could help us reach more kids, get more funding, expand our programs. Tom looked at the gym full of kids practicing their forms, at Emma, teaching Tyler a defensive stance, at Marcus, patiently correcting a younger boy's footwork. The image of Sarah's smiling face flashed in his mind. She'd always said that if you had the chance to amplify good in the world, you had an obligation to take it. Okay, he said, but we tell the whole story, not just the punch, but what came after. The forgiveness, the growth, the community coming together. The interview was awkward at first. Tom wasn't comfortable in front of cameras, but when the reporter asked him about his motivation, the words came easily. My wife passed away 3 years ago, he said, looking directly at the camera. She was an artist, a teacher, a believer in redemption and second chances. She always said that we're all works in progress, all capable of being better tomorrow than we are today. What happened at the park wasn't about violence or revenge. It was about interrupting a cycle of harm, creating space for something better to grow. The reporter turned to Tyler, who'd agreed to be interviewed with his mother's permission. How has your life changed since that day? Tyler thought carefully before answering. I used to think being strong meant being like Marcus was big, intimidating, taking what you want. But Mr. Harris showed me that real strength is standing up after you've been knocked down. And Marcus, he paused, glancing at his former bully. Now tentative friend, Marcus showed me that people can change, that everyone deserves a second chance. Marcus stepped forward, uninvited but determined. Can I say something? The reporter nodded, intrigued. I was a bully. I hurt people because I was hurting, because my dad taught me that fear was respect, that violence was strength. Mr. Harris could have destroyed me that day. He had every right to. Instead, he gave me just enough of a reality check to wake me up, then offered me a path to be better. That's not just strength, that's grace. The segment aired that evening. Tom watched it at home with Emma cringing at how he looked on camera, but proud of how Tyler and Marcus had presented themselves. The phone started ringing immediately. More parents wanting to enroll their kids. Other youth centers asking for Tom to guest teach. Even a publisher interested in a book about his philosophy of purposeful strength. But the call that mattered most came from someone unexpected. Marcus's father, Ray Wheeler. You're the man who knocked out my son. The voice was gruff, potentially hostile. Tom tensed. I defended a child your son was attacking. There was a long pause. I know, I wanted to thank you. Tom was speechless. Ray continued, his voice rough with emotion. I made Marcus what he was. Taught him all the wrong lessons, showed him all the wrong examples. When he came home that day with a bruised jaw and a changed perspective, when he told me what you said about strength and protection, it was like looking in a mirror and finally seeing the monster I'd created, the monster I was. Mr. Wheeler, I started therapy yesterday, first time in my life. Marcus and I are going together. Family counseling, they call it. Trying to break the cycle, you know? My father was a mean drunk who solved everything with his fists. I became the same, just without the bottle. But Marcus, maybe Marcus can be different because of what you did, what you said, what you're teaching. Marcus is making himself different, Tom corrected gently. I just opened a door. He's the one walking through it. Still, thank you for stopping him before he became me, for giving him a chance to be better than 3 generations of Wheeler men who only knew how to hurt. After Ray hung up, Tom sat in stunned silence. Emma crawled into his lap, sensing his emotional state with the intuition children possessed. Was that Marcus's daddy? Yeah, baby. Is he trying to be good too? I think so. Emma nodded sagely. Good. Everyone should try to be good. Mom said that was the whole point of being alive, to try to be good and help others be good too. That night, Tom stood in Sarah's art studio, which he'd preserved exactly as she'd left it. Canvases covered the walls, some finished, some forever incomplete. Her final painting, a sunrise over mountains with a single figure standing at the peak, remained on the easel. "I'm trying, Sarah," he whispered to the empty room. "I'm trying to be the man you always said I was, even when I couldn't see it myself. I'm teaching Emma to be strong and kind, just like you. I'm helping kids find their way, giving second chances, building the community you always dreamed of." A breeze from the open window rustled the sketches on her desk, and one floated to the floor at his feet. He picked it up. It was a drawing of him standing in a boxing ring, but instead of an opponent, he was surrounded by children all looking up at him with trust and hope. At the bottom in Sarah's handwriting, "My hero doesn't fight for glory, he fights for others." She'd drawn it years ago before she got sick, before everything changed. Somehow she'd seen this future, this version of him that used his skills not for trophies but for transformation. The next morning brought unexpected challenges. Tom arrived at the youth center to find graffiti spray-painted across the mural "Snitch" and "Sellout" in angry red letters. Frank was already there with paint and brushes. "Local gang," Frank explained grimly. "They don't like that we're pulling kids away from their recruitment pipeline. And they really don't like that Jerome's been telling his brother about what he's learning here." Tom grabbed a brush, starting to cover the hateful words. "We knew this wouldn't be easy." "No, but I didn't expect it this soon. Tom, these aren't just bullies in a park. These are dangerous people." "I know." Tom kept painting steady strokes, erasing the ugliness. "But we can't stop. The moment we stop, they win. The kids lose faith. Everything we're building crumbles." Emma, who'd come with him, picked up a small brush. "I'll help Daddy." "Me too." Tyler's voice came from behind them. He'd arrived early for morning training, his mother dropping him off before work. Then Marcus appeared, then Jerome, then Maria. Within an hour, 20 kids and a dozen parents were repainting the wall, not just covering the graffiti, but adding to the mural images of unity, strength, hands reaching to help each other up. A car drove by slowly, windows tinted dark. Tom noticed his instincts alert, but he didn't stop painting. Fear was contagious, but so was courage. If he stood firm, others would too. The car drove on. That afternoon's class was different. Tom could feel the tension in the air, the kids aware of the morning's vandalism. Some scared, others angry. "Let's talk about what happened this morning." Tom began gathering them in a circle. "Someone tried to intimidate us, to make us afraid. How did that make you feel?" "Mad," said Jerome. "They're trying to ruin something good." "Scared," admitted Maria. "What if they come back?" "Yes." "Determined," Marcus said firmly. "They want us to quit. That means what we're doing matters." Tom nodded. "All of those feelings are valid. But here's what I want you to understand. Bullies, whether they're in schools or gangs or governments, they all operate the same way. They use fear to control. The moment you refuse to be afraid, or at least refuse to let fear stop you, their power breaks." "But they could hurt us," a younger boy said quietly. "They could," Tom agreed honestly. "I won't lie to you and say there's no risk in standing up for what's right, but I will tell you this: the risk of doing nothing, of letting fear rule your life, of watching wrong happen and staying silent. That's a different kind of hurt, one that damages your soul." He taught them new techniques that day, but also strategies for avoiding confrontation, for de-escalating violence, for protecting themselves without becoming aggressors. He taught them to watch out for each other, to walk in groups, to be aware of their surroundings. As class ended, Jerome approached him privately. "My brother says you're making me soft, that the streets don't care about your philosophy." "Your brother's wrong," Tom said simply. "It takes more strength to choose peace than violence, more courage to build than destroy. The streets don't care about anything but the people on those streets. They're hungry for something better, even if they don't know how to say it." "He says you're going to get us hurt." "Maybe. But Jerome, what's the alternative? You join his gang. You become another statistic, another young man lost to violence before he ever had a chance to be anything else." Tom put his hand on the boy's shoulder. "Your brother loves you in his own way. He's trying to protect you the only way he knows. But you can show him a different way. Not through words, but through who you become." That evening, Tom was closing up the center when a group of young men appeared at the door. Gang colors, visible, attitude, aggressive. Tom recognized the one in front, Jerome's brother Dante. You the one filling my little brother's head with fairy tales. Tom didn't back down but kept his voice calm. I'm teaching him to defend himself and others, to be strong without being violent, to have options beyond the streets. Options? Dante laughed bitterly. Man, you don't know nothing about our world. Your suburban boxing lessons ain't gonna protect him from real danger. You're right, Tom admitted, surprising Dante. I didn't grow up in your exact situation, but I grew up in East LA in the 80s. I've seen friends shot, stabbed, overdosed. I've lost people to gang violence. And I've also seen people break free, build different lives, become more than their circumstances. Dante studied him for a long moment. You were really Golden Gloves, quote, two-time champion. Why'd you quit? My wife. She showed me there was more to life than fighting, that I could use what I knew to build instead of break. Tom made a decision, a risky one. You want to see what I'm really teaching your brother? Step inside. Show me what you got. Dante's crew murmured in surprise. Their leader going into a boxing ring with this older white man. This wasn't how they'd expected the confrontation to go. Dante handed his gun to one of his boys, a gesture that wasn't lost on Tom, and followed him inside. In the ring, Tom handed him gloves, helped him lace them up. No audience, Tom said. This isn't about ego or showing off, just you and me and an understanding. They sparred for 10 minutes. Dante was strong, aggressive, used to street fighting where rules didn't exist. But Tom was technical, disciplined, turning Dante's aggression against him, controlling the pace, never hurting him but consistently showing the gaps in his defense. Finally, both breathing hard, they stopped. Dante pulled off his gloves, a mixture of respect and frustration in his eyes. You could have knocked me out any time. That wasn't the point. Then what was? To show you that there's always someone better, someone more trained, someone you can't beat with just anger and strength. Jerome needs to be prepared for the real world, yes. But the real world isn't just the streets. It's college careers, family future. I'm trying to give him tools for all of it. Dante was quiet for a long moment. My brother's smart, smarter than me. Always has been. Then help him stay that way. Don't let the streets claim another brilliant mind because that's all he thought was available to him. You don't understand the pressure, man. The gang. They don't just let people walk away. No, they don't, Tom agreed. But they also respect strength. You standing up for your brother's education, his future. That's strength they might understand. And if they don't, Tom met his eyes directly. Then your brother has a whole community here ready to stand with him. He's not alone. Neither are you. Dante left without another word, his crew following. But the next morning, Jerome arrived at the center with a note from his brother, teach him everything, make him better than me. The weeks turned into months. Tom's program at the Morrison Youth Center grew from 30 kids to over 100. The waiting list stretched for pages. Parents drove from neighboring cities to enroll their children. The local news story had gone national, with major outlets picking up the tale of the boxer who turned a moment of viral violence into a movement of purposeful strength. But with growth came challenges. The original intimate environment where Tom knew every kid's name and story became harder to maintain. He brought in assistant instructors, other former fighters who understood his philosophy but worried about diluting the message. Emma remained his constant companion, an unofficial assistant demonstrating techniques with serious concentration, her small voice counting out reps alongside the older kids. She'd formed an especially close friendship with Tyler, the two of them creating a comic book series about everyday heroes who fought with wisdom instead of weapons. One Thursday evening, as Tom was reviewing enrollment applications, Frank knocked on his office door. "We have a problem," Frank said without preamble. "Marcus is missing." Tom's blood went cold. "What do you mean missing?" "Hasn't been home in 2 days. His father's been calling everyone. The last anyone saw him was leaving school Tuesday afternoon." Tom's mind raced. Marcus had been doing so well, leading the anti-bullying club, with Tyler mentoring younger kids at the center, even reconciling with his father through their therapy sessions. Any idea why he'd run? Frank handed him a printed screenshot from social media. It was a post from one of Marcus's old friends threatening him for becoming a snitch and sellout, promising consequences for abandoning his crew. "They were never a real gang," Frank explained, "just wannabes playing at being tough. But that almost makes them more dangerous. They've got something to prove." Tom grabbed his jacket. I might know where he is. The abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of town had been a popular hangout when Tom was young, a place where kids went to escape to hide to figure things out. Sarah had brought him there once early in their relationship to show him her secret painting spot where the light through the broken windows created perfect shadows for her art. He found Marcus there, sitting in the same corner where Sarah used to set up her easel, knees drawn to his chest, face bruised, knuckles bloodied. "They jumped me," Marcus said without looking up. "3 of them, my old friends. Said I'd betrayed them, that I thought I was better than them now." Tom sat down beside him, not speaking, just present. "I didn't fight back," Marcus continued. "I could have you taught me enough that I could have hurt them, but I remembered what you said about choosing not to fight being harder than fighting, so I just protected myself and let them tire themselves out." "That took incredible strength, Marcus." "It doesn't feel like strength. It feels like I'm caught between 2 worlds, too changed to go back to who I was, not changed enough to fully be who I'm trying to become." Tom understood that feeling deeply. "After I won my second Golden Gloves, I had a choice: turn pro or walk away. The boxing world couldn't understand why I'd walk away from guaranteed money and fame. The regular world couldn't understand why I'd spent so many years fighting in the first place. I felt like I didn't belong anywhere." "What did you do?" "I met Sarah. She showed me that I didn't have to choose one world or the other. I could create my own. Take the best of what I'd learned in the ring, leave behind what didn't serve me, and build something new." Marcus finally looked at him, eyes red with unshed tears. "I'm scared, Mr. Harris. Scared that no matter how hard I try, I'll always be that bully in the park. That people will never see me as anything else." "Tyler sees you differently. So does Emma Jerome Maria and all the kids you've been helping. Your father sees you differently. I see you differently." Tom put his hand on Marcus's shoulder. "The question is, how do you see yourself?" Marcus was quiet for a long moment. "I see someone trying, failing sometimes, but trying. That's all any of us are, Marcus. Works in progress. The difference is you're actively working on your progress. That's more than most people ever do." They sat in comfortable silence as the sun set through the broken windows, painting shadows on the walls where Sarah's art once lived. Finally, Marcus spoke again. "My old friends said they're going to show up at the youth center. Cause trouble. Prove that your peaceful warrior stuff is weak." Tom's jaw tightened. "When what?" "Tomorrow, during the afternoon class. Then we'll be ready." "You're not going to call the cops, Sheik? Would that solve anything? Or would it just escalate? Besides, this is a test not just for us, but for everything we've been teaching. Can we handle confrontation without becoming what we stand against?" The next afternoon, Tom arrived at the center early. He'd called a meeting of his senior students, Tyler Marcus, Maria Jerome, and a few others who'd shown leadership potential. "We might have trouble today," he said simply. "Some people who don't understand what we're doing here might try to disrupt our class. I need you all to remember everything we've learned. Protect the younger kids, don't engage unless absolutely necessary, and above all, don't let them make you become like them." Jerome looked troubled. "My brother heard about this. He and his boys want to come to protect the center." "No," Tom said firmly. "That's just trading one violence for another. We handle this our way." The class began normally, kids warming up, practicing forms, working on focus mitts. Tom kept Emma close, having arranged for Mrs. Patterson to be ready to take her if things went bad. They showed up at 4:17 p.m., 5 young men, late teens to early 20s, walking in like they owned the place. Tom recognized the leader as Kevin Marcus's former friend from the park incident. "This the place teaching kids to be weak," Kevin announced loudly, causing the entire gym to stop and stare. Tom stepped forward, calm but ready. "This is a place teaching kids to be strong. You're welcome to watch, but not to disrupt." Kevin laughed. "Watch now, we came to teach a real lesson. Show these kids what actual fighting looks like, not this controlled boxing dance you're selling." The tension in the gym crystallized like ice forming on glass. Every student froze, eyes darting between Tom and the intruders. Emma pressed closer to Mrs. Patterson, but her small face showed no fear, only the watchful attention Tom had taught her. Marcus stepped out from behind the heavy bag, where he'd been working, his presence drawing Kevin's attention immediately. "There he is," Kevin sneered. "The sellout. The tough guy who got soft. What happened to you, Marcus? You used to be somebody. I used to be nobody, Marcus replied steadily. Just another angry kid mistaking fear for respect. Now I'm actually becoming somebody. Kevin's face twisted with disgust. Listen to you talking like some after-school special. This old man really did a number on you, didn't he? Tom remained positioned between the intruders and his students, his stance relaxed but ready. Years of experience had taught him to read violence like weather patterns, and he could feel the storm building. But storms could be weathered without becoming part of them. You came here to prove something, Tom said calmly. What exactly? That you can intimidate children, that you can disrupt something positive. What victory is there in that? One of Kevin's companions, a stocky kid with a neck tattoo, laughed harshly. Victory is showing these kids that your fancy moves don't mean nothing on the street, that all this discipline and respect talk is just fantasy. Jerome suddenly spoke up from where he stood with the other students. My brother runs the East Side Demons. One phone call and you'd all be running home, but I'm not calling him. You know why? Because Mr. Harris taught us that real strength doesn't need backup. It stands on its own. Kevin's group exchanged uncertain glances. The East Side Demons were a legitimate gang, not the wannabe crew they ran with, but Kevin pushed forward his pride overriding caution. Fine, then let's settle this clean. Your teacher thinks he's so tough dropping Marcus with one punch. Let's see him handle someone who's ready for him. Kevin pulled off his jacket, revealing arms covered in amateur tattoos and fresh track marks that Tom noticed but didn't comment on. Unless you're scared, old man. The students started to protest, but Tom held up his hand for silence. He understood what was happening here. This wasn't really about him or even about Marcus. This was about Kevin's own loss of identity, his fear that if Marcus could change it meant Kevin's entire worldview was wrong. I don't fight children, Tom said simply. I'm 21. Age is just a number. Maturity is what makes you an adult, and coming here to threaten kids doesn't suggest much maturity. Tom's voice remained even almost sympathetic. But I'll make you a deal. You can join our class, train with us for one session. If at the end you still think what we're teaching is worthless, you can leave and we won't stop you. But if you see value in it, you never come here with threats again. Kevin's friends muttered among themselves, confused by this unexpected response. They'd come for a fight for validation through violence and instead were being offered inclusion. That's stupid, Kevin spat. I didn't come here to play patty cake with kids. Tyler Chen suddenly stepped forward, his thin frame dwarfed by everyone around him, but his voice clear and strong. You're afraid. Everyone turned to stare at the formerly timid boy who'd been too scared to even make eye contact weeks ago. What did you say? Kevin advanced on Tyler, but Marcus immediately moved to block his path. Tyler didn't back down. You're afraid that if you actually tried to learn what Mr. Harris teaches, you'd have to admit you've been wrong, that all your posturing and bullying has been covering up how scared you really are. I know, because I used to be afraid of you, of people like you, but now I see the truth. You're more frightened than I ever was. Kevin's face flushed red. You little... Enough! Tom's voice cut through the rising tension like a blade. Tyler's made his point. The question is whether you're brave enough to prove him wrong. One class, that's all. Show everyone here that what we teach has no value. Should be easy if you're right. Kevin stood trapped between his ego and his fear, his friends watching the entire gym holding its breath. Finally, his pride won out. Fine. One class. But when I prove this is all bull, you admit it to everyone. Tom nodded, and if you find value in it, you apologize to every student here for trying to intimidate them. Kevin hesitated, then agreed. His friends started to follow him onto the mat, but Tom stopped them. Just Kevin. The rest of you can watch. This isn't about ganging up on anyone. It's about individual growth. For the next hour, Tom led Kevin through the same basics he taught every new student. Stance work that seemed simple until you tried to hold it for more than 30 seconds. Breathing exercises that Kevin initially mocked until he realized how much they improved his focus. Basic combinations that required discipline and repetition rather than raw aggression. Kevin struggled. His street fighting style was all wild swings and brute force. Tom's methodology demanded control, precision thought behind every movement. But as the class progressed, Something shifted. When Kevin finally landed a clean combination on the heavy bag, when he felt the difference between chaotic violence and controlled power, his expression changed. Again, Tom instructed, but this time think about protecting someone you care about, not hurting someone you hate. See how that changes your energy. Kevin closed his eyes for a moment, then struck again. The difference was visible to everyone watching. The anger was replaced by purpose, the wildness by determination. I have a little sister, Kevin said quietly, still working the bag. She's 8. Looks up to me even though I'm nothing worth looking up to. You're her brother, Tom replied. That makes you worth everything to her. The question is whether you're going to be the brother she deserves. Kevin's next combination was the cleanest he'd thrown all day. When he stopped breathing hard, there were tears in his eyes that he quickly wiped away. Marcus approached slowly, cautiously. It changes you, doesn't it? When you realize strength can protect instead of destroy. Kevin looked at his former friend. Really looked at him for the first time since arriving. When did you figure it out? When Mr. Harris knocked me down but then helped me up. When Tyler forgave me even though I didn't deserve it. When I realized I'd been using my fists to run from my problems instead of facing them. The two young men stood face to face, years of friendship and recent enmity hanging between them. Then Kevin did something no one expected. He turned to the assembled students and spoke clearly. I was wrong. What you're learning here? It's real. It's important. And I'm sorry for trying to mess with it, for trying to scare you. He looked at Tyler specifically. Kid's right. I was afraid. Still am. Tom stepped forward. Fear's not the enemy, Kevin. It's what you do with that fear that matters. You can let it control you, make you lash out, make you small. Or you can acknowledge it, work through it, become bigger than it. Kevin's friends had been watching in stunned silence. One of them, the stocky kid with the neck tattoo, finally spoke. Kev, what are you doing, man? We came here to... I know what we came here for, Rico, but maybe we were wrong. Maybe... Kevin looked at Tom. Can they join too, the class? Tom studied the group. He saw what he always saw in young men like this. Pain disguised as anger, fear masquerading as toughness. Children who'd never been taught another way to be. Everyone's welcome here as long as they come to learn not to hurt. Over the next 2 hours, what had started as a confrontation transformed into something else entirely. 5 would-be troublemakers became students, awkward at first, resistant to the discipline but slowly engaging. Tom paired each of them with one of his regular students, Kevin with Marcus Rico, with Jerome. The others with kids who could show them that strength came in many forms. Emma, who'd been watching from her safe position with Mrs. Patterson, tugged on Tom's shirt. Daddy, are they good guys now? Tom knelt down to her level. They're guys who are trying to be better, Em. That's all any of us can do, try to be better today than we were yesterday. Like Marcus. Exactly like Marcus. As the impromptu extended class wound down, Tom noticed someone standing in the doorway. A woman in her 60s, well-dressed but with tired eyes. She was watching Kevin intently. Kevin noticed her too, and his face went pale. Grandma. The woman entered slowly, her dignity intact despite her obvious emotion. Jerome's mother called me. Said you were here causing trouble. I came to apologize for my grandson's behavior. Ma'am, there's no need, Tom began, but she held up her hand. There's every need. I raised this boy after his parents died, tried to teach him right from wrong, but the streets got to him and I... Her voice broke slightly. I gave up, stopped trying, let him go his own way because it was easier than fighting him every day. Kevin moved toward her, shame written across his face. Grandma, She slapped him, not hard, but sharp enough to shock everyone in the room. Then she pulled him into a fierce embrace. You come home, she said firmly. You come home and you come here and you learn what this man is teaching. You become the man your parents would have wanted you to be, the man I know you can be. Kevin broke down completely, sobbing into his grandmother's shoulder while she held him like the child he'd never stopped being to her. His friends stood awkwardly, unsure how to process this display of emotion from their leader. Tom gave them a moment, then addressed the room. This is what we're really teaching here, not just how to throw a punch or block one. We're teaching how to be human, how to be vulnerable, how to be strong enough to change. Frank Morrison had been watching from his office, and now he came down, a slight smile on his weathered face. Tom, what you just did, that's not boxing. That's ministry. That's community building. That's changing lives. It's what Sarah would have done, Tom replied quietly. She always saw the potential in people even when they couldn't see it themselves. As people began to leave, Kevin approached Tom one more time. Mr. Harris, would it be okay if I came back? Not to cause trouble, but to really learn. Classes are Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 4, Saturday mornings at 9 for advanced students, but you'll need to earn that spot. Kevin nodded eagerly. I'll be here. And Mr. Harris, thank you for not giving up on me when I'd given up on myself. After everyone had gone, Tom sat in the empty gym with Emma, who was drawing in her notebook. She showed him her latest sketch. It was Kevin's grandmother hugging him, but she'd added wings to the grandmother's back. She's like an angel, Emma explained, coming to save him when he needed it most. Tom thought about all the angels in their lives, Sarah, who'd saved him from a life of meaningless violence, Emma herself, who gave him purpose every day, the community that had formed around the center, each person saving each other in small and large ways. That evening, as they drove home, Emma fell asleep in her booster seat, exhausted from the emotional intensity of the day. Tom's phone buzzed at a red light, a message from Tyler Chen. Mr. Harris, what you did today with Kevin, that was incredible. You didn't defeat him. You transformed him. That's so much more powerful than any punch. Another message, this one from Marcus. My dad wants to meet Kevin's grandmother, says maybe they can start a support group for families dealing with cycles of violence. Is that okay? And another from Jerome. My brother Dante saw everything. He was watching from across the street, ready to step in if needed. He said what you did was the bravest thing he's ever seen, facing violence with compassion. He wants to talk to you about maybe finding a different path for some of his guys. Tom smiled, thinking about ripples in a pond. One action spreading outward, touching lives in ways you could never predict. He'd stood up to a bully in a park to protect one scared kid, and now he was watching an entire community transform. At home, after putting Emma to bed, Tom found himself in Sarah's studio again. He'd been coming here more often lately, feeling closer to her in this space, where her creativity still lived in every paint splatter and half-finished canvas. You'd be proud, Sarah, he said to the room. I'm teaching them what you taught me, that love is stronger than hate, that compassion takes more courage than cruelty, that everyone deserves a chance to become better. His phone rang. Frank Morrison. Tom, you sitting down? What's wrong? Nothing's wrong. Everything's right. I just got a call from the Maxwell Foundation. They want to fund a full scholarship program through the center, 20 full rides to college for kids who complete our program and maintain their grades. They specifically mentioned you said your viral video started it, but what you've built since convinced them. Tom sat down hard, overwhelmed. 20 kids to college. Every year, Tom. 20 kids every year who might never have had the chance otherwise. Tyler Chen's already on the list for next year. So is Jerome if he keeps his grades up. After Frank hung up, Tom sat in the darkness of Sarah's studio, tears flowing freely. He thought about Tyler, who'd found strength through art and courage, about Marcus, who'd transformed from bully to protector, about Kevin, who'd walked in as an enemy and left as a student, about Jerome caught between worlds but choosing the better path. The next morning brought unexpected visitors. Tom was making breakfast when the doorbell rang. It was Ray Wheeler Marcus's father, accompanied by Kevin's grandmother, Mrs. Loretta Williams. Mr. Harris, Ray began formally, Mrs. Williams and I have been talking. We want to start something, a parent and grandparent support group for families dealing with violence, with kids who've lost their way or are trying to find it back. Mrs. Williams nodded firmly. Too many of us are struggling alone, ashamed, not knowing how to help our children and grandchildren. But together maybe we can figure it out. We want to meet at the center, Ray continued. Frank's already approved it, but we want your blessing, your input. You've shown us that change is possible. We want to help other families believe that too. Tom invited them in for coffee, and they sat around his kitchen table planning what would become the Families Finding Strength program. Emma wandered in, still in her pajamas, and climbed onto Tom's lap. Are these the angels' parents? She asked innocently, referring to her earlier drawing. Mrs. Williams smiled. No, sweetheart, we're just regular people trying to do better. That's what angels are, Emma said with certainty. People who help when others need it. The weeks that followed saw explosive growth at the Morrison Youth Center. The parent support group drew 40 families to its first meeting. Kevin became one of Tom's most dedicated students, bringing his little sister to the children's classes. His transformation was so dramatic that 3 other members of his former crew joined the program. Jerome's brother Dante started attending Tom's advanced classes, learning to channel the strategic thinking that had made him a gang leader into legitimate business planning. He was working with Frank to develop a job training program for young men trying to leave gang life. Tyler's art had taken on new dimensions. He'd started a mural project at the center depicting the journey from violence to strength, from isolation to community. Marcus worked alongside him, the former bully, now protecting the artist's vision, making sure Tyler had everything he needed. One evening, as Tom was locking up the center, he found Marcus sitting alone in the gym, staring at his hands. "You okay?" Tom asked, sitting beside him on the bench. "My therapist asked me something today," Marcus said slowly. "She asked if I could go back and change that day at the park, would I?" "What did you tell her?" "That's just it. I don't know. If you hadn't knocked me down, I'd still be that person. Still be hurting others, hurting myself. Getting dropped was the best thing that ever happened to me, but it took public humiliation to wake me up." "What does that say about me?" Tom thought carefully before responding. "It says you're human. Sometimes we need to fall before we can learn to truly stand. The important thing isn't that you needed that wake-up call, it's that you answered it. But what if you hadn't been there? What if I'd just kept escalating until I really hurt someone, or someone really hurt me? But I was there, and you did change. We can't live in the what-ifs, Marcus. We can only work with what is." Marcus nodded slowly. "Tyler's mom invited me to dinner tomorrow, said she wants to thank me for protecting Tyler at school, for being his friend now. It feels weird, you know. His mom cooking me dinner when 6 months ago I was terrorizing her son." "It's called grace," Tom said. "The ability to see who someone is becoming rather than who they were. Tyler's family is giving you that gift. Make sure you're worthy of it." "I'm trying. Every day I'm trying." They sat in comfortable silence until Marcus spoke again. "Mr. Harris, do you think people can really change, like fundamentally?" Tom thought about his own journey from angry young fighter to husband to widower to single father to community teacher. "I think people can choose to grow, to evolve, to become more than their worst moments or their past patterns. It's not easy, and it's never complete. We're all works in progress until the day we die. But yes, I believe in change. I've seen it. I've lived it." "I want to be a counselor," Marcus said suddenly, "like professionally. Help kids who are like, I was angry and lost and taking it out on everyone around them. Is that crazy?" "That's not crazy. That's purpose. That's taking your pain and transforming it into something that can heal others. There's nothing more valuable than that." The next day brought a surprise that would change everything. Tom was teaching his afternoon class when a man in an expensive suit entered the gym. He looked familiar, but Tom couldn't quite place him until the man spoke. "Hello, Tom. It's been a long time." Tom's blood went cold. Standing before him was Danny Morrison, no relation to Frank, his last opponent in the ring before he'd retired. The fight that had gone wrong, where Danny had taken a bad fall and suffered a career-ending concussion. Tom had always carried guilt about that night, even though it had been a clean fight, a freak accident. "Danny," Tom managed. What are you doing here?" The student sensed the tension, the class grinding to a halt. Emma looked between the two men with concern. Danny stepped forward, and Tom instinctively moved to protect his students, but Danny held up his hands peacefully. "I'm not here for trouble, Tom. The opposite, actually. I've been following what you've been doing here. The viral video, the community building, the transformation of violent kids into protectors. And I realized I needed to come see you to tell you something I should have said 20 years ago." Tom waited, his heart racing. "That night, our fight, it wasn't your fault. I'd been having headaches for weeks, probably from accumulated damage. My trainer wanted me to pull out, but I needed the purse money. When I went down, it wasn't from your punch alone. It was everything catching up to me. But I let you carry that guilt because I was angry, bitter about my career ending. Tom felt something loosen in his chest, a weight he'd carried for 2 decades beginning to lift. Danny continued, I spent years being angry, drinking too much, pushing away everyone who cared about me. But then I saw that video of you protecting that kid, and more importantly, I saw what happened after. How you turned one moment of necessary violence into a movement of nonviolence. And I realized you took our fight that moment that ended my career and has haunted you, and you transformed it into this. He gestured around the gym at the kids watching with rapt attention. You became what boxing should be, about discipline, protection, community. Not hurting for sport, but strength for purpose. Danny reached into his suit jacket and pulled out a check. I'm a financial advisor now. Done pretty well for myself. This is a donation to the center specifically for your program. It's not charity, it's an investment in what you're building here. Tom looked at the check and nearly staggered. It was for $100,000. Danny, I can't. You can and you will. Consider it 20 years of accumulated interest on a debt I should have cleared long ago. Use it to expand to reach more kids, to save more lives like you saved that Tyler kid. The two former opponents stood face to face, decades of history between them. Then Danny extended his hand and Tom shook it, both men finally free from a past that had haunted them. There's one more thing, Danny said. I've been sober for 5 years now. Part of my recovery has been making amends. You were on my list, but I was too proud, too stubborn to reach out until I saw what you were doing here. So thank you, Tom, for giving me a reason to finally make this right. After Danny left, Tom stood in the middle of the gym, overwhelmed. His students gathered around him, sensing he needed support. Was that man a bad guy? Emma asked, taking his hand. No, baby. He was someone I hurt accidentally a long time ago, and we both carried that hurt for too long. He came to let it go, to let us both let it go. Marcus understood something deeper. He came to forgive and be forgiven. Exactly, Tom said. Sometimes the hardest fights are with our own past, our own guilt. Today, we both won that fight. That evening, Tom called a community meeting at the center. The main gym was packed: students, parents, the support group, local business owners who'd started contributing to the program. Even the mayor had shown up, having heard about Danny's donation and wanting to be associated with the center's success. Tom stood before them all, Emma by his side as always, and spoke from his heart. 6 months ago, I threw a punch in a park. It was necessary, but it was still violence. What's happened since all of you, this community, we've built the lives that have been changed, that's the real victory. We've proven that strength isn't about domination. It's about lifting others up. It's about choosing to be better, to do better, to help others find their better. He paused, looking at the faces before him, Tyler, with his sketchbook. Marcus standing tall and proud, Kevin, with his grandmother and little sister Jerome, with Dante Frank. Morrison beaming like a proud father. Danny Morrison's donation will let us expand. We're going to add after-school tutoring, art therapy, family counseling services. We're going to create a model that other communities can replicate. But none of this works without all of you. Every parent who brings their child here is choosing hope over fear. Every kid who steps onto these mats is choosing discipline over chaos. Every former bully who transforms into a protector proves that redemption is possible. The room erupted in applause. Mrs. Williams stood up, her voice strong. Mr. Harris, you gave us our children back. You gave us hope when we had none. We're not just a community anymore, we're a family. As the meeting wound down, people breaking into groups to discuss the expansion plans, Tyler approached Tom with a large wrapped package. I made this for you, Tyler said shyly. Well, Marcus helped with the frame and Emma gave me ideas for the colors. Tom unwrapped it carefully. It was a painting Tyler had perfectly captured the moment in the park, but he'd transformed it. Instead of violence, the image showed Tom standing between Marcus and Tyler, but his arms were spread wide, embracing both of them. In the background, the crowd wasn't watching in fear, but joining hands, forming a protective circle. At the bottom, in careful lettering, Tyler had written, "The punch that built a community." Tom's eyes filled with tears. Tyler, it's how I see it now, Tyler explained. Not as the day I was saved from a bully, but as the day we all started becoming something better. Later, as Tom tucked Emma into bed, she asked her nightly question. Daddy, are you happy? It was the same question she'd been asking since Sarah died, and for 3 years Tom had struggled to answer honestly. But tonight he could. Yes, baby, I'm happy. Because of all the people you're helping. Because of that, yes, but mostly because I know your mom would be proud of who we're becoming, you and me both. Emma smiled sleepily. She is proud, Daddy. I know she is. Sometimes in my dreams she tells me. She says you're doing exactly what you're supposed to be doing. Tom kissed her forehead, his heart full. What else does she say? She says the best fights are the ones that end with everyone winning. And Daddy, I think we're all winning now. As Emma drifted off to sleep, Tom stood at her window looking out at the city lights. Somewhere out there, Tyler was probably drawing Finding Strength in art. Marcus was at home doing homework while his father cooked dinner, their relationship healing day by day. Kevin was reading to his little sister, being the brother she deserved. Jerome and Dante were planning legitimate business ventures, using their street smarts for legal success. And at the Morrison Youth Center, the lights were still on. Frank working late to accommodate all the new programs they'd be starting. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new kids needing help, new battles to fight with compassion instead of violence. Tom thought about the punch that had started it all, a single moment of necessary force that had rippled out into waves of positive change. He'd been a fighter all his life, but only now understood what he'd really been training for. Not to win matches or titles, but to stand when standing mattered, to protect those who needed protection, to teach strength that built rather than destroyed. Sarah had always known. Even when he was just a young boxer with calloused knuckles and championship dreams, she'd seen this future, this version of him that used his power to empower others. She'd painted it, written about it in the journals he'd found after her death, believed in it even when he couldn't see it himself. The city settled into night, but Tom knew that tomorrow would bring new opportunities to fight the right fights, to stand for those who couldn't yet stand for themselves, to continue building the community that had grown from one protective act in a sunny park. He walked back to Emma's room, watching her sleep peacefully, her small hand clutching the teddy bear Sarah had given her. On her nightstand sat the photo of all three of them at the beach. Sarah radiant despite her illness, Tom holding them both, Emma laughing at something off camera. "We're doing it, Sarah," he whispered. "We're fighting the good fight, and we're winning." The morning after this community meeting brought an unexpected challenge that would test everything they'd built. Tom woke to his phone buzzing urgently at 5 a.m. It was Frank Morrison, his voice tense. "Tom, we have a situation. The center's been vandalized again, but this time it's worse. You need to get down here." Tom dressed quickly, leaving a note for Emma, who was still sleeping, and drove through the pre-dawn darkness. When he arrived at the center, his heart sank. The windows were shattered, the door kicked in, and spray-painted across Tyler's beautiful mural were the words, "This ends now." Frank stood amid the destruction, his marine bearing intact despite the devastation around him. Security footage shows 6 men, faces covered. They were in and out in 10 minutes, destroyed the new equipment Danny's donation just helped us buy. Tom walked through the wreckage, glass crunching under his feet. The heavy bags were slashed, their stuffing scattered like snow. The ring ropes were cut. Most heartbreaking was Tyler's mural, months of work destroyed in moments of vindictive rage. "Any idea who?" Tom asked, though he suspected he already knew. "The Northside Pythons. They've been losing recruits to our program. Word is their leader, Carlos Mendez, sees us as a direct threat to his pipeline." Frank's jaw clenched. "Tom, this is beyond bullying. This is organized crime sending a message." Before Tom could respond, cars began arriving. First Tyler and his mother, the boy's face crumpling when he saw his destroyed mural. Then Marcus with his father, both of them surveying the damage with grim expressions. Jerome and Dante came together, the older brother's face dark with a fury Tom recognized all too well. "This is war," Dante said flatly. "They want war, they got it. Me and my boys will—" "No," Tom interrupted firmly. "That's exactly what they want. Us to retaliate, to become what they are. Then they can justify whatever comes next." "So we just take it?" Kevin asked, having just arrived with his grandmother and sister. "Let them destroy everything we've built." Tom was about to answer when Emma appeared in the doorway. Mrs. Patterson behind her, looking apologetic. "She insisted on coming when she heard," Mrs. Patterson explained. Wouldn't take no for an answer. Emma walked through the debris, her small face serious but unafraid. She stopped at Tyler's ruined mural, touching the spray paint gently. "They're scared," she said simply. Everyone turned to look at her. "Scared of what, baby?" Tom asked, kneeling beside her. "Scared of losing. Bad people always break things when they're scared of losing. Mom told me that when she was sick. She said the cancer was trying to break her body because it was scared of her spirit." Tyler knelt beside them, tears streaming down his face as he looked at his destroyed work. "But they won. They destroyed everything." Emma shook her head firmly. "No, breaking something doesn't mean winning. Daddy taught me that. Remember, Mr. Tyler? You can break a painting, but you can't break the ability to paint. You can break a gym, but you can't break what we learned here." Marcus stepped forward, his voice steady. "She's right. They want us to give up or fight back on their terms. Either way, they win. But what if we do neither?" "What are you suggesting?" Frank asked. Marcus looked around the destroyed gym, then at the growing crowd of students and families gathering outside, word spreading quickly through the community. "We rebuild. Today. Right now. All of us. And we do it publicly, openly. We show them and everyone else that breaking our things doesn't break our spirit." Tom felt a surge of pride. The boy who'd been a bully 6 months ago was now thinking like a leader, like someone Sarah would have admired. "He's right," Tom said, standing. "But we do more than rebuild. We expand. We show them that every attack makes us stronger, brings more people to our cause." Dante struggled with this approach. "Tom, you don't understand these people. They don't respond to peaceful resistance. They respond to force." "I understand them perfectly," Tom replied. "I grew up around people like them. And you're right, they don't respond to peace, but they also don't know how to handle something they can't intimidate or destroy. We become that something." Within hours, the center was swarming with volunteers. The story had hit social media and support poured in from unexpected sources. A local construction company arrived with new windows. A sporting goods store donated replacement equipment. Most surprisingly, 3 rival gang members showed up not to cause trouble, but to help. "We ain't about destroying places that help kids," one of them told Tom. "That crosses a line." Tyler had set up a new canvas against the one undamaged wall and was already sketching, refusing to let the destruction of his mural defeat him. This time, he wasn't working alone. Emma sat beside him with her own brushes, adding touches of color. Other kids joined in, and soon the wall was becoming a collaborative piece, more beautiful because it was created by many hands instead of one. The mayor arrived with news cameras, eager to be associated with the community's resilience. Tom avoided the cameras but pushed forward kids like Marcus and Tyler to speak. "They thought they could scare us," Marcus told the reporter. "But fear only works if you let it. Mr. Harris taught us that. Every time they try to tear us down, we'll build back better." As the day progressed, Tom noticed 2 men watching from across the street. They didn't help or interfere, just observed. He recognized the type scouts for Carlos Mendez reporting back on the community's response. Kevin noticed them too. "Want me and the guys to run them off." "No, let them watch. Let them report back that we're not afraid, that we're not going anywhere." That evening, as the immediate repairs were completed and the crowd began to disperse, a black SUV pulled up. The door opened and Carlos Mendez himself stepped out. Tom had seen his picture in police files. Frank had shared 35 intelligent eyes, expensive clothes that couldn't quite hide the prison tattoos on his neck. Everyone tensed. Dante moved protectively closer to Jerome. Marcus stepped up beside Tom. Even little Emma grabbed her father's hand tighter. Carlos walked forward alone, his own men staying by the vehicle. He surveyed the repairs, the new mural in progress, the community standing together. "You're Tom Harris," he said. It wasn't a question. "I am." "You're causing me problems." "You're causing yourself problems," Tom replied calmly. "I'm just teaching kids to box." Carlos laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Boxing? Right. You're teaching them to stand up, to resist, to choose different paths. That's bad for my business." "Then maybe you're in the wrong business." The 2 men stood face to face, the tension thick enough to cut. Carlos was younger, stronger armed. Tom could see the gun under his jacket. But Tom didn't back down, didn't flinch. You know what happened to the last person who interfered with my operations? Carlos asked quietly. I know what happened to the last person who tried to intimidate me, Tom replied just as quietly. He's now one of my best students and a changed man. Would you like to meet him? Tom gestured to Marcus, who stepped forward despite his obvious fear. Carlos studied him, recognizing something. You're Ray Wheeler's kid, the one from the viral video. I was, Marcus said, his voice steady, despite his trembling hands. Now I'm someone different, someone better, because Mr. Harris gave me that chance. Carlos turned his attention back to Tom. You think you're untouchable because you've got the community and the media behind you, but cameras go away, communities get scared, and then it's just you. It's never just me, Tom said, gesturing to the crowd that had reformed, standing witness to this confrontation. That's what you don't understand. Every kid you recruit, every family you destroy, every life you claim, they all have people who love them, who mourn them, who want something better. I'm just giving them a place to find it. Carlos was quiet for a long moment, then pulled out his phone and showed Tom a picture. It was a boy, maybe 12, wearing boxing gloves. That's my nephew, Carlos said. My sister wants to enroll him here. Wants him to have options I never had. He laughed bitterly. She doesn't know I'm the reason places like this usually don't survive in neighborhoods like ours. So change that, Tom said simply. Be the reason this one does survive. Carlos stared at him like he'd grown a second head. You're serious. Your nephew deserves a chance to be more than what the streets would make him. Every kid does. You can be part of giving him that chance, or you can be the reason he doesn't get it. Your choice. The silence stretched on everyone holding their breath. Finally, Carlos pocketed his phone. My nephew's name is Miguel. He'll be here Monday. He turned to leave, then looked back. This doesn't make us friends, Harris, but maybe it makes us not enemies. After Carlos left, the gathered crowd erupted in nervous chatter. Frank pulled Tom aside. You realize what just happened. You just got a gang leader to back down through words alone. I didn't get him to back down, Tom corrected. I gave him a way to step sideways to be an uncle instead of a gang leader, at least for a moment. Sarah always said everyone has multiple identities fighting inside them. Sometimes you just have to speak to the right one. That weekend, the center hosted its first exhibition event, a showcase for the students to demonstrate what they'd learned not just in boxing technique, but in conflict resolution and strength through peace and community building. The gym was packed beyond capacity. Local media was there, but more importantly, families filled every available space. Tom watched from the side as his students took turns in the ring, not fighting each other, but demonstrating forms techniques, the discipline they'd acquired. Tyler and Marcus performed a choreographed sequence together, the former victim and former bully moving in perfect synchronization, showing how opposition could become cooperation. The crowd was mesmerized. Jerome spoke about choosing education over the streets with Dante beside him, the older brother's pride evident. Kevin demonstrated defensive techniques with his little sister, showing her how to protect herself while emphasizing that violence was always a last resort. Then Emma took the ring. At 7 years old, she was the youngest student, but she moved with confidence beyond her years. She didn't demonstrate punches or blocks. Instead, she showed the breathing exercises Tom taught, the meditation techniques, the way to find calm in chaos. My mommy went to heaven 3 years ago, Emma said, her clear voice reaching every corner of the packed gym. She was sick, but she fought every day. Not with her fists, but with her heart. Daddy teaches us to fight the same way. To be strong enough to be gentle, to be tough enough to be kind. That's what real champions do. There wasn't a dry eye in the house. The climax of the event was unexpected. Miguel Mendez, Carlos's nephew, was in attendance with his mother. During the open floor segment, where audience members could ask questions or try basic techniques, Miguel raised his hand. "Can I try?" he asked shyly. Tom helped him into the ring, showing him basic stance and movement. The boy was naturally athletic, picking up the fundamentals quickly. As Tom worked with him, he noticed Carlos standing in the back corner, having slipped in unnoticed. Their eyes met across the crowded room. Carlos nodded once. Not surrender, not friendship, but acknowledgement. Respect, maybe. Or at least the beginning of it. As the event wound down, Dr. Patricia Reeves from Jefferson Middle School took the microphone. 6 months ago, our school was facing an epidemic of bullying. Students were afraid, parents were frustrated, and we educators felt helpless. Then Tom Harris stood up in a park, and everything changed, not because of violence, but because of what came after. The Morrison Youth Center has become more than a gym. It's become a transformation center, a place where bullies become protectors, where victims become victors, where communities become families. She paused, looking directly at Tom. Which is why Jefferson Middle School is officially partnering with the center to make Mr. Harris's program part of our physical education curriculum. Every student will have the opportunity to learn not just self-defense, but self-respect, not just how to fight, but when not to. The announcement was met with thunderous applause. Tom felt overwhelmed thinking about how a single moment of intervention had spiraled into this, a movement that was reshaping their entire community. After most people had left, Tom found himself sitting in the ring with Emma, Marcus, Tyler, and Kevin. They watched Frank and other volunteers cleaning up, parents chatting in small groups, kids running around playing. "Did you imagine this?" Tyler asked Tom. "When you stepped in that day, did you imagine all this would happen?" "No," Tom admitted. "I just knew I couldn't walk away from someone who needed help." "But you changed everything," Kevin said. "My whole life trajectory changed because you gave me a chance to be better." "You changed yourselves," Tom corrected. "I just refused to let you stay stuck in who you were." Marcus was quiet, then spoke softly. "My therapist says I might always struggle with anger, with the impulse to solve problems through force. It's not something that just goes away." "She's right," Tom said. "I still struggle with it too. The difference is, now you know you have a choice. You can feel the anger without becoming it. You can acknowledge the impulse without acting on it." "Is that what you did with Carlos today?" Tyler asked. "When he was threatening you?" "Every instinct I had said to prepare for violence," Tom admitted. "My body was ready to fight, but I chose to listen to a different voice. Sarah's voice telling me that everyone deserves a chance to choose better, even someone like Carlos." Emma leaned against her father. "Mommy would be happy about today." "What? Why is that baby so—" "Because her paintings are coming true. Remember the one in her studio, the one with you surrounded by kids in a ring that happened today?" Tom's throat tightened. He'd forgotten about that particular painting, had been too overwhelmed by grief to really look at Sarah's work after she died. But Emma was right. Sarah had painted, this future had seen it somehow. The next few weeks brought rapid change. The partnership with Jefferson Middle School meant training hundreds of kids instead of dozens. Tom had to bring in more instructors, each carefully vetted to ensure they understood the philosophy, strength through peace power through protection. Danny Morrison became a regular visitor, using his financial expertise to help set up a foundation that would ensure the center's long-term survival. He and Tom had developed an unexpected friendship, bonded by their shared history and mutual respect. "You know what's ironic?" Danny said one afternoon as they watched a class in progress. "That fight 20 years ago, the one that ended my career and haunted you, it led to this. All these kids being saved because we stepped into a ring 2 decades ago." "Sarah would call that providence," Tom replied. "Everything happening for a reason, even the painful things. Smart woman. The smartest." The real test came on a Thursday afternoon. Tom was teaching a class when Dante burst in, his face pale with panic. "Jerome's been taken," he said breathlessly. "The Northside Pythons grabbed him from school. They want me to come alone or they'll hurt him." The gym went silent. Everyone understood what this meant. The fragile peace was breaking. This was a direct challenge, using an innocent kid as leverage. Tom's mind raced. "Where? The old warehouse on Riverside. The one where I found Marcus. I know it." Tom turned to Frank. "Call the police, but tell them to stay back. If they see cops, they might panic and hurt Jerome." "You're not going alone," Marcus said immediately. "Neither are you," Tom replied firmly. "Then what's the plan?" Dante demanded. "I can't lose my brother. He's all I got." Tom thought about Sarah, what she would do. She'd always said that darkness couldn't drive out darkness, only light could do that. But sometimes light had to be strong enough to pierce through the shadows. "We go together," Tom said finally. "All of us. Not to fight, but to show them they're outnumbered by something they don't understand, a community that won't be divided by fear. Within 20 minutes, over 100 people had gathered. Parents, students, community members, even some former gang members who'd been touched by the center's work. They walked together through the streets, a silent procession that drew attention and followers. At the warehouse, they found what Tom expected. 15 Northside pythons, Jerome tied to a chair in the middle, scared but unharmed. What the gang hadn't expected was the army of civilians that surrounded the building, blocking every exit, not with weapons, but with presence. The gang's second-in-command, a young man named Rico, looked genuinely confused. "This ain't how it works. Where's Dante?" "This was between us and him." "No," Tom said, stepping forward. "When you took Jerome, you made it about all of us. He's not just Dante's brother. He's our student, our family, our future. You want to hurt him, you'll have to go through every one of us." "We've got guns," Rico shouted through his voice cracked with uncertainty. "And we've got something stronger," Tom replied. "We've got purpose. We've got community. We've got the knowledge that we're on the right side of this. You pull those guns, and maybe some of us get hurt. But you'll never escape what comes next, not from the police, not from the media, not from your own consciences." Emma, who Tom had tried to keep away but who had insisted on coming, stepped out from behind him. The 7-year-old girl walked straight toward Jerome, past gang members who stood frozen in shock. "It's okay, Jerome," she said clearly. "We're here to take you home." The sight of this small child, unafraid, walking through their intimidation like it was nothing, broke something in the gang members. Their posture changed, weapons lowering the situation, deflating like a punctured balloon. Rico looked around at the faces surrounding them. Mothers, fathers, children, elderly people, all standing together, all unafraid. He saw Miguel Mendez there with his mother Carlos's nephew, standing with the community against the gang. "This is messed up," Rico muttered. He cut Jerome's bonds himself. "Take him. This ain't worth it." As Jerome ran to his brother embracing Dante with tears streaming down both their faces, Tom approached Rico. "It doesn't have to be like this," he said quietly. "You could be standing with us instead of against us." Rico laughed bitterly. "Yeah, and what would that get me? A minimum wage job and a pat on the back. It would get you a chance to be more than this, to be someone your mother could be proud of, someone you could be proud of. The door's open at the center, always." Rico said nothing, but Tom saw him pocket one of the center's cards that Emma had been handing out to the gang members, her innocent courage, shaming them into accepting them. The walk back to the center was triumphant. Jerome rode on Dante's shoulders, the brothers reconciled in their relief. The community had faced down violence with solidarity and won. But Tom knew this wasn't the end. It was another beginning. That night, Carlos Mendez called Tom directly. "You've got balls, Harris. What you did today? That was either the bravest or stupidest thing I've ever seen." "Maybe both," Tom admitted. "My nephew won't shut up about you, says you're teaching him to be a warrior for peace. What does that even mean? It means being strong enough to protect without destroying, powerful enough to stand up without putting others down. It means choosing the harder path because it's the right one." Carlos was quiet for a long moment. "I've done things, Harris, things that can't be undone. There's no redemption for someone like me. Sarah, my late wife, used to say redemption isn't about erasing the past. It's about choosing a different future. You've already started by bringing Miguel to us. That's a choice, a good one. One good choice doesn't balance a lifetime of bad ones. No, but it's a start. And tomorrow, you get to make another choice and another. That's all any of us have the next choice." After Carlos hung up, Tom sat in Sarah's studio, surrounded by her unfinished paintings. One caught his eye, a work he'd never really looked at before. It showed two men facing each other, one in shadow, one in light, but their shadows merged into something that looked like a bridge. "You saw all of this, didn't you?" he whispered to the empty room. "Somehow you knew what I'd become, what we'd build." A knock at the door interrupted his thoughts. It was Marcus, Tyler, Kevin, Jerome, and Dante, the core group that had become like extended family. "We wanted to talk to you about something," Marcus said. "We've been discussing it, and we want to start a youth council at the center. Kids helping to run programs, make decisions, reach out to others who need help." Tyler added, "We want to call it Sarah's Council, if that's okay, to honor her vision of community and redemption." Tom's eyes burned with tears. She would have loved that. They spent the next hour planning these young men who'd come from such different places. The former bully, the bullied artist, the reformed troublemaker, the kid caught between worlds and his gang member brother finding a new path. They were living proof that change was possible, that strength could be redefined, that communities could heal. As they prepared to leave, Jerome turned back. "Mr. Harris, what you all did today coming for me, I've never had that before. People willing to risk themselves for me. You have it now," Tom said firmly, "and you always will. That's what family does." After they left, Tom tucked Emma into bed. She was drawing in her notebook again this time, sketching the scene from the warehouse, her walking toward Jerome surrounded by the community. "Were you scared today, baby?" Tom asked. "A little," she admitted. "But then I remembered what Mommy used to say, that love is stronger than fear. And I love Jerome, and I love our community, so the fear got smaller. You were the bravest one there today." "No," Emma said seriously. "We were all brave together. That's what made it work." As Tom kissed her goodnight and turned off the light, his phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. He opened it to find 2 words, "Thank you, Rico." Another ripple, Tom thought. Another life potentially changed by the simple act of offering hope instead of hostility. He walked back to Sarah's studio one more time, drawn to her paintings like a moth to flame. In the corner, covered by a sheet, was one he'd never uncovered too painful to look at. Tonight, he pulled the sheet away. It was a self-portrait of Sarah, but she'd painted herself as a tree roots deep in the ground. Branches reaching toward the sky, and in every branch a different face. Tom, Emma, and dozens of others he didn't recognize at the time but now saw clearly. Tyler was there, and Marcus, Jerome, and Dante, even someone who looked remarkably like Carlos. At the bottom, in her flowing script, she'd written, "We are all connected. Every action creates branches. Every choice grows fruit that feeds the future. Plant wisely, water with love, and watch the forest grow." Tom sank into her painting chair, overwhelmed by the profound truth his wife had understood. That single moment in the park hadn't just been about stopping a bully. It had been about planting a seed that would grow into this, a forest of changed lives, connected souls, a community transformed. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. The Northside Pythons wouldn't simply disappear. Carlos's potential redemption was far from certain. The kids would face setbacks, temptations to return to old patterns. The center would need constant support to survive. But tonight, Tom allowed himself to feel what Sarah would have wanted him to feel: pride, and how far they'd come, hope for where they were going, and gratitude for the chance to be part of something larger than himself. The single dad boxer who'd stood up to a bully had become something more: a teacher, a father figure, to dozens, a catalyst for change. But most importantly, he'd become what Sarah had always seen in him: a protector not just of bodies, but of futures, a fighter not against people but for them. The morning Tom discovered the envelope slipped under the center's door, he knew everything was about to change again. Inside was a single photograph: Emma at school, playing on the playground, unaware she was being watched. No words, no demands, just the implicit threat that made his blood run cold. Frank was already at the center preparing for the morning class when Tom showed him the photo. The older man's face darkened with a fury Tom had rarely seen from the usually composed Marine. "This crosses every line," Frank growled. "Threatening you is one thing. Bringing Emma into it." "It's Carlos's rivals," Tom said quietly, though his hands trembled with barely controlled rage. "The East Side Kings. They've been losing territory ever since Carlos started pulling back from conflicts. They blame our center for making everyone soft." "How do you know?" Tom pointed to the corner of the photograph where a partial tattoo was visible on the photographer's hand, the distinctive crown and serpent of the East Side Kings. "Sloppy work. They wanted me to know who sent it." His first instinct was to find them to unleash 25 years of boxing training on whoever had dared to threaten his daughter. The old Tom, the young fighter from East LA, would have already been on the streets seeking vengeance. But Sarah's voice echoed in his mind, reminding him that violence born from anger only bred more violence. "What are you going to do, Frank asked. "First, I'm getting Emma somewhere safe, then..." Then I'm going to end this, but not how they expect. He called Mrs. Patterson, arranging for her to pick Emma up from school and take her to her sister's house outside the city for a few days. He hated lying to Emma, telling her it was a special surprise sleepover, but her safety came before truth. That afternoon, instead of teaching his regular class, Tom did something unexpected. He called a meeting of every former and current gang member who'd been touched by the center's work RICO, who'd been attending secretly, several of Dante's former crew, even some Northside Pythons who'd started bringing their younger siblings to classes. The Eastside Kings threatened my daughter, he said simply, showing them the photograph. The room erupted in angry voices, offers of retaliation, promises of street justice. Tom let them vent for a moment, then raised his hand for silence. This is a test, he said. Not just for me, but for all of us, for everything we've been building. They want us to react with violence, to prove that beneath all our talk of peace and redemption, we're still just thugs settling scores with fists and guns. But they threatened Emma, Rico protested. That's your kid, man. There's got to be consequences. There will be, Tom assured him, but not the kind they expect. Over the next 3 hours, Tom outlined a plan that was either brilliant or insane. Instead of violence, they would use the King's own tactics against them, but transformed. Where gangs used intimidation, they would use exposure. Where gangs used fear, they would use truth. Tyler had been documenting everything at the center for months, taking photographs, recording videos. Marcus had been keeping detailed journals of his transformation. Jerome had statistics on how many kids had chosen education over the streets because of their programs. They would compile it all into something unprecedented, a public presentation that would expose not just the King's threats, but the entire ecosystem of gang recruitment and intimidation that plagued their community. We're going to invite everyone, Tom explained. Media, police, politicians, community leaders, families. And we're going to show them exactly what we're fighting against and what we're fighting for. We're going to make it impossible for the Kings to operate in shadows because we're going to drag everything into the light. Dante shook his head. That's suicide, Tom. You expose them like that, they'll come for all of us. They're already coming for us. The question is whether we face them on their terms or ours. Carlos Mendez surprised everyone by walking in during the planning session. He'd been coming around more often since Miguel started training, always watching from the edges, never fully participating. But now he stepped forward. The Kings sent that photo, he said. It wasn't a question. Tom nodded. They're led by Vincent Reyes. We've been rivals since we were kids. He's smart, ruthless, and he doesn't make empty threats. Carlos paused, seeming to wage an internal war. I can't undo my past, Harris. Can't take back the things I've done. But maybe I can use what I know to help. The room went silent. Carlos Mendez, active gang leader, offering to help expose gang operations. It was unprecedented. Why? Tom asked simply. Carlos pulled out his phone, showing a video of Miguel working the heavy bag at the center, his face bright with concentration and joy. Because my nephew smiles now, really smiles, not the fake tough guy act I've been teaching him. Because my sister looks at me with hope instead of disappointment. Because, his voice cracked slightly, because I'm tired of being the monster in everyone's story. The preparation took a week. During that time, Tom barely slept, constantly worried about Emma, despite knowing she was safe. She called every night, excited about her adventure with Mrs. Patterson's sister, who had horses and a pond with ducks. Each call both relieved and pained him. She was safe, but separated from him because of dangers she didn't even know existed. The presentation was scheduled for Friday evening. They'd rented the high school auditorium, sent invitations to every major media outlet, every politician representing their district, every community organization. The response was overwhelming, over 500 confirmed attendees. The morning of the presentation, Tom found another envelope under the center door. This one contained a single bullet and a note, "Cancel or else." He pocketed both, adding them to the evidence they'd present. That evening, the auditorium was packed beyond capacity. Tom stood backstage with his core team, Marcus, Tyler, Kevin, Jerome, Dante, and surprisingly, Carlos, who'd worn a suit for the first time in years. You ready for this? Marcus asked Tom. No, Tom admitted. But Sarah used to say courage isn't being ready, it's acting despite not being ready. They walked onto the stage to face their community. Tom saw familiar faces, Dr. Reeves, Danny Morrison, Frank, parents of kids from the center. But he also saw unfamiliar ones, including a cluster of young men in the back, whose posture and clothing marked them as East Side Kings. Tom began simply. 6 months ago, I stood up to a bully in a park. That single action started ripples that have transformed our community. Tonight we're here to talk about the bullies that still plague us, not in parks, but in our streets, our schools, our children's futures. Tyler took over presenting his documentation photographs and videos showing the transformation of former gang members, bullies becoming protectors. Victims finding strength. The audience watched mesmerized as the visual story unfolded. Marcus spoke next, reading from his journal about his journey from bully to mentor, his voice breaking as he described the moment Tom's punch had knocked sense into him, literally and figuratively. Then Jerome presented the statistics. 43 kids who'd chosen after-school programs over gang initiation, 12 former gang members now employed in legitimate jobs, 8 high school dropouts who'd returned to complete their education. The presentation built to Carlos's testimony. The gang leader, or former gang leader, as he announced to gasps from the audience, laid bare the recruitment tactics, the intimidation strategies, the way gangs preyed on vulnerable kids seeking belonging. I've been that predator, Carlos admitted, his voice steady despite visible emotion. I've recruited kids, taught them violence was strength, crime was success. I told myself I was giving them family, but I was really stealing their futures. He pulled out his phone, projecting a photo onto the screen behind him. It was Miguel at the center, surrounded by other kids, all laughing during a break in training. This is real family, Carlos continued. This is real strength. And tonight, I'm officially announcing that the Northside Pythons are disbanding. Any member who wants out has my blessing. Any member who wants to continue in crime will do so without my protection or support. The announcement sent shockwaves through the auditorium. Tom saw the Eastside Kings members conferring urgently among themselves. But the climax came when Tom himself took the microphone for the final segment. He pulled out the photograph of Emma the Bullet, the threatening note displaying them on the screen. This week, the Eastside Kings threatened my 7-year-old daughter because our center is disrupting their recruitment. They thought fear would make me back down, make us all back down. He paused, looking directly at the Kings members in the back. They were wrong. He clicked to the next slide, a photograph of Emma at the center teaching a defensive stance to an even younger child, her face serious with concentration. This is my daughter. She's 7 years old and she's already stronger than any gang member who needs to threaten children to feel powerful. She's strong because she chooses kindness over cruelty, courage over cowardice, love over fear. Tom's voice rose with passion. And she's not alone. Every child in our program, every former gang member who's chosen redemption, every bully who's become a protector, they're all proof that the Kings and groups like them have already lost. They just don't know it yet. The presentation concluded with Tom issuing a direct challenge to Vincent Reyes and the Eastside Kings. You want to settle this? Then let's settle it. Tomorrow noon at the center. Not with guns or knives or threats against children, but with something you're probably not brave enough to try an open conversation. Face me, face this community, face the damage you're causing, or slink back into your shadows and admit you're nothing but cowards who threaten little girls. The auditorium erupted. Some applauded, others argued, the King's members stormed out and reporters rushed the stage with questions. But Tom's eyes were on Carlos, who gave him a small nod of respect. That night, Tom stayed at Frank's house. The center wasn't safe, and Emma was still with Mrs. Patterson's sister. He couldn't sleep, wondering if he'd just signed his own death warrant or finally found a way to break the cycle of violence. The next morning, he arrived at the center early to find it surrounded, not by gang members, but by community members, hundreds of them forming a human shield around the building. Parents, students, former gang members, business owners, even some off-duty cops who'd been touched by the center's work. You didn't think we'd let you face this alone, did you? Dr. Reeves asked, standing near the entrance with several teachers from Jefferson Middle School. By noon, the crowd had grown to over 1,000 people. Media trucks lined the streets, helicopters circled overhead, and the entire city seemed to be watching. At exactly 12 o'clock, Vincent Reyes arrived. He was younger than Tom expected, maybe 28, with intelligent eyes that assessed the situation quickly. He came with 5 of his lieutenants, but faced with the massive crowd, they looked small, overwhelmed. You wanted to talk Harris, Vincent called out. his voice carrying despite the crowd's murmur. "So, talk." Tom stepped forward, the crowd parting to let him through. "I wanted you to see something, Vincent. All these people, they're here because they're tired of being afraid. Tired of you and groups like yours stealing their children, destroying their communities, perpetuating cycles of violence that benefit no one." "Spare me the sermon," Vincent snapped. "You think your little boxing gym changes anything? You think teaching kids to throw punches with proper form makes them immune to the streets?" "No," Tom admitted. "But teaching them they have choices does. Teaching them they're worth more than what you offer does." Marcus stepped forward, standing beside Tom. "I was like you once, Vincent. Angry, violent thinking, fear was respect. Mr. Harris showed me different. So did Tyler, who forgave me when I didn't deserve it. So did this entire community that gave me a second chance." Tyler joined them, then Jerome, then Kevin, then dozens of others, all standing with Tom facing down the Kings. Vincent looked at Carlos, who'd also stepped forward. "You too, Carlos. You're part of this circus." "I'm part of something better than what we were," Carlos replied. "And you could be too, Vincent. It's not too late." Vincent laughed bitterly. "You think it's that easy? Just decide to be good, and everything's forgiven?" "I've got blood on my hands, Carlos. We both do." "Yes," Carlos agreed, "and we'll carry that forever. But we can choose not to add more blood. We can choose to be different, starting right now." Tom pulled out his phone, showing Vincent a video Emma had recorded before he'd sent her away for safety. Her face filled the screen, earnest and unafraid. "Mr. Vincent," her small voice said from the recording, "my daddy says you're scared and that's why you wanted to hurt me. But I'm not scared of you. I feel sorry for you because being mean must make you very sad inside. If you came to our center, we could teach you how to be strong without being mean. I could teach you the breathing exercises that help when you're angry. Please don't be bad anymore. It's harder to be good, but it feels better. Love, Emma." The crowd had gone completely silent. Vincent stared at the screen, something breaking in his expression. This wasn't what he'd expected. Not violence, not police, but a 7-year-old girl offering him compassion. She really said that after I threatened her." Tom nodded. "She did. Last night when I told her why she couldn't come home yet. She wasn't angry or scared. She was worried about you, about why someone would need to threaten children to feel powerful." Vincent's lieutenants shifted uncomfortably, seeing their leader affected by a child's message. One of them, barely 18, suddenly spoke up. Maybe we should listen, V. This ain't worth it anymore." Vincent turned on him sharply, but saw similar expressions on his other lieutenants' faces. They were tired. Too tired of the violence, the constant fear, the empty promise of street glory that only led to prison or death. "You know what the real tragedy is," Tom said, his voice carrying to the entire crowd. "You're all so young. Vincent, you're 28, your whole life ahead of you. These kids following you, they're teenagers. You're all young enough to completely change direction, to become something extraordinary. But every day you wait, that window gets smaller." He gestured to the center behind him. "This door is open to all of you, not just to train, but to transform. We have job training programs, educational support, counseling services. Carlos can tell you redemption isn't easy, but it's possible." Vincent stood frozen, the weight of 1,000 eyes on him. The echo of Emma's innocent words in his ears, the sight of his former rival Carlos standing with the community instead of against it. Finally, he spoke, his voice barely audible. "If I walk through that door, my own gang might kill me." "If you walk through that door, this entire community will stand behind you," Tom replied, "just like they're standing here now." The moment stretched tense as a held breath. Then Vincent took a step forward. Then another. His lieutenants followed, and together they walked through the crowd that parted like the Red Sea through the center's doors that Tom held open. The crowd erupted in cheers, but Tom felt no victory, only relief and the weight of new responsibility. They'd just taken in 6 active gang members who wanted out. Protecting them while helping them transform would be the center's greatest challenge yet. Inside the center, Vincent stood awkwardly. His lieutenants clustered around him like lost children. The regular students watched warily but didn't flee. This was what they'd been training for, not just physical confrontation, but moral courage. "What happens now?" Vincent asked. "Now you learn. Tom said simply. You train not just your bodies, but your minds and spirits. You face who you've been and decide who you want to become. It won't be easy. Some days you'll want to quit to go back to what's familiar. But if you stick with it, if you really commit, you'll become men you can be proud of. Frank stepped forward with enrollment forms, as if this was perfectly normal, as if notorious gang members walked in seeking redemption every day. We'll need emergency contact information commitment to attend at least 3 sessions per week, an agreement to our code of conduct, no violence, no intimidation, no gang colors or signs within these walls. As Vincent filled out the paperwork with shaking hands, his youngest lieutenant, the 18-year-old who'd spoken up outside, approached Tyler. You really forgave him? He asked, pointing at Marcus. After he bullied you? Tyler nodded. Forgiveness freed me more than it freed him. Holding on to anger would have made me become like him, the old him. Letting it go let me become myself. The kid looked at Tyler's sketchbook. You draw every day. It's another way of fighting to create beauty in an ugly world. Could you teach me? And just like that, another connection formed, another bridge built between worlds that had seemed impossibly separate. The rest of the day was surreal. Media coverage was nonstop, the story of the gang that walked away from violence to seek redemption going national within hours. Tom did his best to shield Vincent and his group from the cameras, knowing they needed space to process this massive life change. That evening, Tom finally felt safe enough to bring Emma home. She ran through the door and straight into his arms, holding him tight. I saw everything on TV, she said excitedly. Mrs. Patterson's sister let me watch. You did it, Daddy. You made them choose to be good. I didn't make anyone do anything, baby. They chose it themselves. But you showed them they could choose. That's what heroes do. As Tom tucked her into bed that night, Emma asked her usual profound question. Daddy, do you think Mommy knew this would happen? All of it. Tom thought about Sarah's paintings, her uncanny ability to see potential where others saw problems, her unwavering faith that love could triumph over hate. I think she believed it could happen, and her belief helped make it possible. I want to be like her, Emma said sleepily. And like you. Strong and kind and brave enough to give people chances. You already are Em, that message you recorded for Vincent that took more courage than any punch I've ever thrown. The next morning brought unexpected news. The police had used the public revelations from the presentation to launch a major investigation into remaining gang activities. Several high-level dealers had been arrested, and the East Side Kings had effectively dissolved its members, either seeking help or fleeing the city. But more importantly, applications to the center's programs had exploded, not just from kids, but from adults. Parents who wanted to learn to protect their families. Former gang members from other cities who'd heard about the redemption being offered, even police officers who wanted to better understand the communities they served. We're going to need a bigger space, Frank told Tom, showing him the numbers. Maybe multiple locations. Danny Morrison overheard and stepped forward. I've been thinking about that. What if we created the Harris Foundation named after you and Sarah, dedicated to replicating this model in cities across the country? Tom was overwhelmed. I don't know what to say. Say yes, Carlos interjected. He'd been coming daily, helping Vincent's group adjust, sharing his own struggles with redemption. What you've built here, it's bigger than one community. Every city has kids like Tyler being bullied, kids like Marcus looking for purpose, kids like Jerome caught between worlds. They all deserve what you're offering. Over the following weeks, Vincent's transformation became the center's most powerful testament. The former gang leader threw himself into training with an intensity that surprised everyone. But it wasn't just physical training. He attended every counseling session, every conflict resolution workshop, every community service project. One afternoon, Tom found him teaching defensive techniques to a group of younger kids, his patience remarkable for someone who'd ruled through fear just weeks before. You're a natural teacher, Tom observed. Vincent smiled ruefully. I've always been a leader. I just led in the wrong direction. This feels like what I was supposed to be doing all along. Sarah used to say that our greatest strengths become our greatest weaknesses when pointed in the wrong direction, but they can be redirected. Your wife sounds like she was something special. She was. She saw the best in everyone, even when they couldn't see it themselves. Vincent was quiet for a moment. I owe your daughter an apology, a real one face to face. She'd like that. The apology happened that evening. Vincent knelt down to Emma's level, his tough exterior cracking as he spoke. I'm sorry I tried to scare you, Emma. It was wrong and weak, and everything a real man shouldn't do. You were right in your message being mean did make me sad inside. Thank you for seeing that, for caring enough to want me to be better. Emma studied him seriously, then stepped forward and hugged him. Vincent broke down completely, sobbing into the shoulder of the 7-year-old girl he'd threatened, who now offered him unconditional forgiveness. It's okay, Emma said, patting his back. Everyone makes mistakes. The important thing is you're sorry and you're changing. That's what Daddy says makes someone a good person, not never falling down but always getting back up and trying to be better. As Tom watched the scene, he thought about cycles. Cycles of violence, broken. Cycles of forgiveness. Begun cycles of transformation, spreading outward like ripples from a stone thrown into still water. Marcus had started mentoring Vincent's youngest lieutenant, teaching him not just boxing techniques but study habits for the GED classes he'd enrolled in. Tyler was working with several former gang members on a massive mural depicting the community's transformation. Jerome and Dante had started a legitimate business together, employing former gang members in construction and renovation work. The center had become more than Tom ever imagined, not just a place to learn boxing, but a transformation hub where broken people came to be rebuilt, where communities came to heal, where the impossible became possible through the simple act of believing people could change. 3 months after Vincent's public redemption, the governor visited the center. She stood where Tom had taught his first class and announced a statewide initiative based on their model with funding for 20 centers across California. What Tom Harris and this community have proven, she said to the assembled crowd and media, is that violence isn't solved with more violence, but with opportunity, compassion, and the courage to offer second chances. This center has become a beacon of hope, showing that even the most troubled youth can become productive, valuable members of society when given the right support and guidance. Tom stood in the back, uncomfortable with the attention holding Emma's hand. She looked up at him with those wise hazel eyes. Are you happy, Daddy? It was the same question she'd been asking since Sarah died, but now Tom could answer without hesitation. Yes, baby, I'm happy. Because we're helping people. Because we're doing what Mom would have done, seeing the light in people's darkness and helping them find it too. That night, after all the cameras had left and the center was quiet, Tom stood in the ring where it all began, where he taught that first class after the park incident. The space was filled with ghosts of transformation. Marcus learning control. Tyler finding courage. Kevin discovering purpose. Jerome choosing education. Vincent seeking redemption. Frank joined him carrying 2 cups of coffee. Hell of a journey from that day in the park. Sometimes I can barely believe it's real, Tom admitted. One moment, one decision to intervene, and all this followed. Sarah would be proud. I think she knew somehow. Her paintings, her words, it's like she saw this future and pointed me toward it. They stood in comfortable silence until Frank spoke again. You know, this is just the beginning, right? 20 centers across California, then other states will follow. You've started something that could change how this entire country deals with youth violence. Tom thought about the responsibility of that, the weight of being the catalyst for such massive change. Then he thought about Emma, about the world he wanted to leave for her, about Sarah's belief that one person standing up could inspire others to stand too. Then we better make sure we do it right, he said finally. Every kid deserves what these kids got a chance to choose better, to become more than their worst moments. As they locked up the center, Tom noticed a figure waiting by his car. It was Rico, the first gang member who'd attended class during that confrontation weeks ago. But he wasn't alone. He had a young boy with him, maybe 10 years old. Mr. Harris, Rico said nervously. This is my little brother Manuel. I was hoping, could he join the kids program? Tom looked at the boy, saw the same fear and anger he'd seen in so many others, but also the spark of hope that brought them to the center's doors. Classes start at 4 on Monday, Tom said with a smile. Emma helps teach the beginners. You'll like her. As Rico and Manuel walked away, the older brother's hand protective on the younger shoulder, Tom realized this was how real change happened. Not in grand gestures or viral moments, but in the quiet decisions of individuals choosing better for themselves and those they loved. He drove home with Emma asleep in the back seat, her small hand clutching the new sketch she'd drawn, their center surrounded by figures holding hands, forming an unbreakable chain of community. At the bottom, in her careful handwriting, Daddy's Army of Love, just like Mommy dreamed. The single dad boxer who'd stood up to a bully had become something he never expected: a general in an army of transformation leading not through force, but through the revolutionary idea that everyone deserved a second chance, that strength meant lifting others up, that the hardest fights were the ones you chose not to have.